Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and it is that time of the year. It is the happy holidays. It is the game of the year.
I wish I could do the bird call. That would have been a perfect moment for it. Yeah, there you go. Birdman Denim #1.
And we are joined, as always, by Pete Birdman Busby.
Yo, what's good? Nice to be here. Any Birdman would really be good. Rapper Birdman, Chris Anderson Birdman. I haven't seen the Birdman movie, but that's probably solid too.
It is.
But as always, a good year, maybe potentially a great year, as we'll see as we run through our categories this year.
And we are joined also by Billy Dub Siren Rothert.
Don't know what that means, but
that's the
really happy to be here. This is crazy that we have done now 3 Game of the Year episodes. I'm speechless. What are we still doing?
Increasing our audience. We somehow, against all odds. And we are joined this time by a special guest. You might remember from previous Game of the Year episodes, we had someone break into our recording mid-stream to rant about Final Fantasy and then disappear into the ether. But, you know, after many a fill-in podcast and special episode, I felt like, you know, Chris ZombiePie Redacted, you earned a spot on Game of the Year. You've played most of the games with us, or enough.
I think I've basically played half of the games on this list, which is telling.
Enough.
And you keep talking about how I'm a part of the B team or the bonus team when I think we've recorded just as many bonus podcasts as mainline podcasts, so we live in a weird alternate dimension where the alternate dimension is it's an Ouroboros.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing, ZP, because like you being just as much of a full-fledged member of this show is probably as much of a resume booster as it is killer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the
Careful
year
what you sign on for.
We're in the year 3 into our 5-year world famous plan. So I mean, we're over halfway there.
Yeah, we're
Trust the
getting
process.
there. See, the trick is we needed someone who, other than me, who knew the Final Fantasy garbage and the weird anime garbage.
Yeah.
And now we have extra people for that half of the show.
This makes it a lot easier if I need to abstain from one of those games that I didn't play.
Yes, exactly. So, it is time for Game of the Year. But before we get started on Game of the Year, just a reminder, we're having a all-email, all-commentary episode to wrap up the year. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and get in your emails. We've got emails. We've got enough right now, but we could always use more.
More than better. And Game of the Year is a great time to jump in with emails, right?
Exactly.
Disagree with us, yell at us, call us dumb.
Tell us that we did not pick the game that should have won that category and why. Or just send in a great email, because the emails that we have, while they are numerous, we're always looking for quality.
That's true.
So if we could make some cuts, that would be great.
We got an email that features DMX very prominently, and I'm happy about that.
So that'll lead the podcast, obviously.
Was it about his great remix of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
No, it's not. That's a teaser for the email episode. So if you want to get in touch... If you want to get in touch with the show, at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com, hit up our comment sections. Just a reminder, we do moderate that comment section, so if you don't see your comment immediately, you don't have to keep posting it. I will eventually approve it. Is
that already a problem at this point?
It's happened.
Oh, okay.
It's happened where people repost their comment thinking it didn't go, and it went. I have moderator in my blood, so I just want to make sure that there's no garbage there. And then, if you want to send an email, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And without further ado, it's time for the Marianas Trench Deep Listens Award.
The Trenchies.
Yes, the Trenchies. It's time for Best Comedy. You'll remember in the past that we usually started with Game of the Year, Game of the Year of whatever year we were, recording the episode for.
Game of calendar year 2017.
Yeah, usually we would do that, but this year we actually played a lot of games that came out in calendar year 2017, and they're all quite good.
Yeah, a lot of good games.
So we're going to push that back into further in the show, because otherwise we're starting the show with a showstopper, and I don't like that. So instead, we will start with Best Comedy, and the nominees are The Stanley Parable, Hotiful Boyfriend, Wuppo, Final Fantasy X-2, and The Magic School Bus Explores the Ocean.
All right. So
There's a special note on the Magic School Bus. Explores the Ocean. It says character creator.
The character creator. Yes, that is a good addition. That is a good amendment. God, that's an amazing character creator.
is X2 the one with the concert?
Yes, it's the one that I paid $10 for you to play the first hour of.
So should we differentiate between intended and unintentional comedy?
I mean, then that's half the category just dead.
I mean, yeah, if we're going to go with best comedy as game that made us laugh the most, then these all deserve to be on here.
All right.
Yeah. These all made me laugh for different reasons. And I think we can safely... The Magic School Bus explores the ocean. It was very funny. I enjoy making characters in that game.
Sproing.
It does go sproing, but I don't think it punches with some of these other games. Anyone disagree?
Let's strike it
I'm
out.
happy with losing that one.
Yeah, I didn't play it.
That one can go.
Now, Final Fantasy X-2, it makes me laugh in some places.
We definitely laugh at it.
We laugh at it a lot.
But don't forget about everything that Brother says. Don't forget that everything that, like, Riku says.
Yeah, I do like Brother dancing. I like everything about Brother. I like a lot of the moments in this game that are funny. But disasterific. Most of it is due to poor writing.
I don't want... I think Gino's got the point here. I don't want to reward a game being funny because it was a disaster.
No, it was disasterific. It's not a disaster.
That's a fair point.
And I feel like the other three games on this list are funnier and also intentionally funny.
Yeah.
The joke here is the time that the creators spent out of their finite existence on this earth working on this thing. And the joke is on us for playing it. So I'm going to cross off Final Fantasy X-2.
Fine.
So we're left with The Stanley Parable, Hatoful Boyfriend, and Wuppo. These are bangers.
And in any other year, Wuppo might win. But I think in this case, it might be more... It's definitely funny, but it might be more cute than funny. You know what I mean? I think the cuteness factor might be elevating the humor.
If we were talking about the wholesome family fun award, I think Wuppo's got that.
Yeah.
Maybe Magic Pendulum could also throw up a good running contest, except for that one twist.
For 95% of its runtime.
But I also feel like Wuppo falls a little bit short in the actual comedy.
I don't know. There is a face that vomits mud.
There's a difference between heartwarming and comedy, I feel like.
Remember that face that vomits mud and threatens an apocalypse by vomiting mud?
I do remember that.
Do you remember working in the electricity mines to get currency?
That's just a reference to Zardoz when the giant head vomits guns and says the gun is good. The penis is evil.
That's good too.
So let's talk about so can we all agree that Stanley Parable is a strong contender here? And
yes.
I think the question is what goes head to head against Stanley Parable? Is it Hatoful Boyfriend or Wuppo?
Pigeons.
And that's a real question right now.
Pigeons.
Yeah.
Pigeons.
I'm actually kind of feeling Hatoful Boyfriend.
Yes.
Over Stanley Parable or just over Wuppo?
Over Wuppo.
Okay.
Over Wuppo. I like Wuppo, but I feel like as far as executing a well done parody, like a well done caricature of an entire genre of game.
Hell yeah.
I mean,
fair.
I feel like it is both silly and clever and well done.
And it backfired horribly, and that's funny in itself.
That does add another layer to the humor. That is good. I think it beats out Wuppo, certainly.
Okay.
Someone's phone is going off, but but I think that's Wuppo. That's Wuppo getting a phone call that it needs to leave this category. So I'm going to cross Wuppo off.
I think so.
Yeah.
So now we got Hatoful Boyfriend and Stanley Parable. The real showdown.
This is a tough one. So does anyone have a strong opinion on these two? I know
all
ZP...
eyes turn to me.
Yeah.
I think it's Hatoful Boyfriend. You could play this game and not know the horrible backstory to the game and still think it's one of the funniest games ever. It's just, oh, here's a bunch of pigeons, here's a bunch of weird storylines that go in the most bizarre directions, and then you read up about the history. And the man who made this game is literally stuck in the salt mines to this day, making the same games he never wanted to make.
I think they're close, but I think ZP's point that once you throw the backstory in, I think Hatoful Boyfriend wins. I think that's funny as hell, that he just has to keep making these crazy dating sims.
He's making a game where you date bugs, like it's been in development for 2 years.
Oh, no.
The same point that ZP just made, I want to use against voting for Hatoful Boyfriend. One of the points, which is, ZP, I think you said, even if you take away the history of the genre and you just give this to a person who has not played a dating sim, they'd find it funny. That's true. But I think that what made this game, though I didn't play this with you guys on the show, I played this a little bit elsewhere. What made this game funny for me was that I had played garbage tier dating sims before.
Hell yeah.
And without that, I didn't find this game as funny. So I think Stanley Parable can stand on its own 2 feet and deliver its complete funny package without having to have any context. But not saying Hatoful Boyfriend isn't funny, it loses some of its funny without someone having the experience of an entire genre behind them.
Well,
I'm going to put that as a point against Hatoful Boyfriend.
A lot of the Stanley Parable's humor is referential to gaming industry insider information. Like, there's a lot of commentary on, I think there's a free-to-play section, and there's like a game development where you have to play test things. It's a meta-commentary on gaming tropes in general. Now, I think the Stanley Parable is very funny. I think that some of the very dry British humor that they're going with is pretty well done. But man, when you fight those punk-idgeons...
Or you go to the pudding dimension.
Or when you go to the pudding dimension... That's really good. Oh, it's hard. These are 2 very difficult games. Like,
Zami's whole story arc.
Yeah, burn it in your soul. Carve it in your soul.
The fact that it takes place in the post-apocalypse and you're the only human left.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You're a hunter-gatherer. You live in a cave.
I think we're going Hatoful. That's what it sounds like to me.
I'm not going to be upset by it, but, I personally got more actual laughing moments from Stanley Parable. I got more moments that genuinely made me chuckle or laugh out loud because of the wit, the timing, the well-structured the well-structured pace of Stanley Parable delivering its humor. And if I end up losing here, that's not that big a deal. I'm not going to win every category for my argument. I can pick my battles.
You might not win any, Billy.
That's true, but I certainly don't want to let Stanley go down without some proper praise.
Yeah, it comes down to a matter of, do you give it to the screwball comedy or the dark comedy, in a way, and I think sometimes you just want that manufactured screwball comedy.
God, but which is which in this category? Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Both of these could be screwball, and both of these could be really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in this... So, where are people leaning? I'm kind of leaning Hatoful Boyfriend.
I'm Hatoful.
I can take an L here.
All right.
Thanks,
Hatoful Boyfriend is the winner. Hatoful Boyfriend, you are our Comedy of the Year. You win the Trenchy. Let me just fill this in with the victory color.
It's bright red, just so everybody knows. Victory color.
The victory color is bright red, aggressive red.
Hi. Jeez.
Category 2, Best Drama. Nominees are Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, Magic Pendule, The Quest for Color, Persona 5, Pyre, The World Ends With You, Detention, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, and Doki Doki Literature Club.
All right, let's make some savage cuts here, fam.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, let's drop Magic Pendule, near it. It'll be rewarded later. We don't need it here.
Okay, that's fine. But it's so dramatic.
Despite having the most dramatic title, The World Ends With You might have to be my next submission for a cut.
I agree.
Best dramatic title, The World Ends With You. Got it. But this is best drama overall.
I also don't think Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, I was gonna say Doki Doki Literature Club has moments of drama, but it's not a drama. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might have been a
take
mistake.
an L with there. Yeah.
Are there any easy cuts left? I don't think so.
I don't know if they're
maybe
easy.
Detention? Would you call it? Well, Detention.
Detention's probably an easy cut.
Would you call it a drama?
let's
We
say-
have a best horror category. I feel like
Yeah, it'll come back around.
Yeah, it'll have another shot. And I mean, is Detention gonna beat something like Life is Strange or Pyre or Final Fantasy X?
I mean,
Or
it's
Persona.
really
With
fucking
drama or emotional heart.
good. Yes, I mean it could, but I don't think it's. I think it gets its due in best horror, and I think the only reason why. Let me make the argument for Detention. I think that game operates at first as a horror game, but the further in you get, the more it becomes a family drama, a period piece, and a commentary on societal struggle. And so, at first blush, it starts at the horror comes from realizing that this person's circumstances are so dire that there is no escape from what has happened to her. And so I feel like the game kind of walks between both of those two categories, but I think it might be more effective as a horror game than as a drama.
I think if you named the category something like best historical drama or best social drama, Detention might run away with it. But best drama flat out, I don't think it stands.
Yeah. Okay, so bye-bye Detention. So now we've got Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, Persona 5, Pyre, and Hellblade. There's nothing I want to cut.
I don't know much about Hellblade because I didn't play this one, but is Hellblade gonna beat all 4 of these other games?
I think Hellblade might have too much action for its own good in this case.
I was gonna say I feel like it's also sabotaged by its mechanics in a way.
Yeah.
And that ends up softening the punch of Hellblade's drama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but man, some of those story moments with the dude who yells at you and says "Senua," we will run through the fire, Senua, and all the voices and
You're always kicking ass though is the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
At its heart, you're a kick-ass swordsman.
and Dillian
Swordswoman, I should say.
and you have to take his head to that game's really good. But I can see cutting it because I'm not ultimately going to fight for it to be the winner.
Okay.
Also, it pains me to say this, but Persona 5?
It trips
like
at the
Persona.
finish line.
It does.
Yeah, it also
at the end.
overstays its welcome in a way where the drama feels so stretched thin that you can see it breaking in parts.
Also, I feel like any time we talk about Mementos, the drama just tanks. And in fact, the whole game just tanks. So when I think about drama, I think about this sort of long, woven together tapestry of interactions. And something like Mementos just like hard stops all of those, and it doesn't let the drama be continuous.
Yeah, and it also has a bunch of comedic interludes that kind of break up the pacing. This is a game that's 30 to 40 hours too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And-
also a case of wanting to have your cake and eat it. Like, Persona wants to provide this high school experience, and by including, like, the typical high school trappings, it really does make, when am I going to get to the next part where, like, shit hits the fan or something like that? Like, the next dramatic set piece. Everything in between just causes the story to come to a crawl.
In Persona's defense, they address some real issues, and they do it in like a pretty decent way.
Yeah.
But because there were so many things built around Persona that took away the spotlight of these real issues, I feel like it's not going to win our best drama award.
Yeah. I think that everything it does, Life is Strange, not everything it does, but a lot of the topics that I'd want to talk about.
I think Life is Strange is going to beat Persona in a one-on-one easily, so it's not going to be a contest.
So we're left with Pyre, Final Fantasy X, and Life is Strange. And
next. Okay, what do you want to say, Gino?
Take aim.
I'm going to take aim at Final Fantasy X because this category is not best soap opera.
That's a fair point. But Billy, remember the end of Final Fantasy X?
AZP, I do.
Do you remember how fucking
dramatic
gut-wrenching that ending was?
I remember how fucking pre-rendered that ending was.
So what? We don't care how they made it.
Doesn't matter. It's one of the best endings in gaming history.
I will say where Persona fell on its face, Final Fantasy X actually came through and that's why it stands as one of the best modern Final Fantasy games, if not the best modern Final Fantasy game.
It's the last good one.
It's hard for me to cut, but for the reasons that I'll argue for Life is Strange and for Pyre, like the things that I'm thinking about with best drama are what game makes you make the hardest choices? What game do I get the most emotionally invested in because of what's on the line? I don't think about that for Final Fantasy X. I think Life is Strange and Pyre give us that. And that's a dimension of drama more than just soap opera. And that's actually, I mean, it was a joke that I called this not the soap opera category, so I wanted to cut Final Fantasy X. I don't feel like I had to make any impactful, serious choices that I had emotional investment in. Yeah, it had drama and interactions. And as much as we laugh about the Titus and Yuna romance, I think it was actually done pretty decently, better than most on-screen love romances that I've played from that, I guess, decade of games. But because I didn't have to make any sort of impactful, meaningful choices, and it didn't affect me, the player, as much as like watching a soap opera, that's why I want to cut Final Fantasy X.
I would also argue that to Final Fantasy X's credit, it's a role-playing game, and you end up feeling empowered in the roles that you're playing in the game. It's not just the ending with Titus and the ultimate culmination. It's also like when you watch Oron dematerialize, it's watching a friend disappear, or watching Yuna have to sacrifice each of her aeons and watch them shatter in the background as the world comes crumbling before them. Like, that made me feel something deeply moving and deeply emotional.
Yeah, I agree, but let me just... So we've talked about Final Fantasy X too. Does the existence of Final Fantasy X-2 undo any of the quality of the drama of 10? Knowing that a game exists that retcons and tramples all over all of the things that 10 did well. All of the things that you're like, oh wow, this is a great finality to this ending. How great this wrap-up is. Wow, all of these things come together in this crescendo, and then you know that if you hit start on the sequel to this game, all of it is gone. Every good emotion you had is gone. Now,
all right, I think that's a low blow.
It's a low blow, but I'm just saying...
incredibly low.
It's very low.
That is an ankle shot low blow right there. That is the Achilles low blow.
That's like saying...
I don't know if it's fair.
You've got a shitty brother, therefore the sins of the brother, like the prodigal sons, are judged as equal.
No, because a brother isn't a sequel.
Depends on who you ask.
It'd be like if you were reincarnated, like maybe.
The sins of the father do not apply to the sins of the son.
I don't know
what about sin in the game.
Besides,
exactly. Like, what about the Jek spheres in Final Fantasy X? And it's the best characterization in the game.
I like Final Fantasy X.
I don't alcoholism with Jacked.
Let me be real with you here. I love Final Fantasy X. I think it belongs on this list. But I want Life is Strange to win this award.
Because it should.
Because it should. And Final Fantasy X it's a really solid drama. It also has highs and lows and some moments that just straight don't work. I feel like Life is Strange and Pyre just do not have those lows for the most part.
All right, fine. Well, now I have no horse in this race, so you guys have at it.
Well, all right. If it's going to be a three-person fight at this point, I want to know if I've already lost in my fight for Pyre, or could anyone be persuaded?
No.
All right.
You've lost.
Well, if you want to make an impassioned argument. I mean, I really liked Pyre, too.
I actually could be motivated to vote for Pyre instead of Life is Strange.
All right, so let me just try it here.
Do it.
So, for me, Life is Strange is a... So, when I think about what made me like this category and why I ended up having these two, and these are the ones that I would have picked as my final two as well. So this is just as hard for me as picking which one I'm going to actually vote for. But I feel like I don't want to just give it away. I want Pyre to have a solid fight. And when I think about Pyre versus Life is Strange, I think about which game made me make the best choices, the most impactful choices, where I felt like I had the most personal investment and whose storylines I cared about the most. So in Life is Strange, ultimately it is similar to a Telltale style game. Yes, there are some choices that will matter in the late game, but these choices will work sort of, though there's like a main storyline and your choices can deviate a bit from the storyline, but then they'll eventually reconvene and come back to a convergence. So your choices in a game like Life is Strange or any other Telltale style game matter, because it talks about that isolated character interaction a bit, but ultimately you're going to get to the same finish line. When I was playing Pyre and I learned that the squad that I start with, I'm going to have to eventually delete these people from the game and I won't get to talk to them anymore, I felt more emotionally ripped by that inevitable loss, and that loss that was given to me as a choice, that I had to sort of cut my own team. And not only would they be out of my gameplay for their gameplay benefits, but also I couldn't hear any more of their storyline, or maybe I specifically chose to keep members because I wanted to hear more of their storyline. I felt more investment in my choices in Pyre than I did in Life is Strange. And let me add something else too. The fact that you can rewind time and undo the choices make like Life is Strange less of a drama for me, because there's not permanence with my choices. There was permanence in Pyre. So as a player, I played Life is Strange probably 4 times, but I really only saw the ending once. I had to just play every single scenario and rewind time over and over again. So I never had to make a hard choice. I saw all the options and I got to just pick the one that I liked the best. But I don't know what Joriel's final scene story would have been like, because I released her first in my first playthrough. So there's a lot that I lost and had to put on the line for Pyre. So when I think about the story that I got and the story that I had to sacrifice to get it, that created the most personal drama for me. I think the actual narrative drama in both games are solid, but the tiebreaker for me was how much was I impacted by the choices that I had to make. And I didn't have to make hard choices in Life is Strange because I got them all laid out in front of me with reverse time ability.
I guess I reject the part of that argument that you don't have to actually make the choices, because at the end of the day, you have to live with one of the choices permanently. You can see some of the circumstances that will play out, but not everything that plays out from your original choice. And
You're right.
Similarly, you can always restart a match in Pyre and then make a different choice about who you assign to be freed, or if you're going to lose, you can retry it so that you will win. So there are definitely consequences that you can play around with in Pyre if you so choose. Now, for me, the big difference is that Pyre is playing around with some rebellion story, with a lot of stories about redemption and damnation in certain regards, in what it takes to be saved, and it also is this kind of large ensemble cast that's telling a bunch of different stories about how people got to be in the downside, and what they would do to get free, and whether they want to be free at all. And all of those stories I thought were really interesting. And writing your own conclusion and getting to see what happens based on your playthrough, I think is really compelling. And just like as a feat of writing, it's really impressive. But man, Life is Strange just plays with a bunch of emotional space that games just almost never play with. Like, some of the moments in that game, sitting with a friend who's terminal, like getting to pick whether an entire city lives or whether a person you love, a singular person that you love, lives. dealing with depression, suicide, all of these different topics that are almost never broached, and this game broaches it so well. And it also deals with a time of people's lives in the teenage years, in high school, in a really honest and, I thought, mostly authentic way. And I don't know, it's just, I think it's really compelling to do an accurate or a somewhat authentic adaptation of a time that's usually not that talked about, without becoming melodrama.
I'll agree with you a little bit that where I think my individual choices had heavier impact in Pyre, I think Life is Strange hit way harder topics and knocked them out of the park with how they hit them. So if for that reason Life is Strange beats Pyre, I'm not going to be upset about it. But I feel like this is definitely probably going to be one of the hardest decisions we make today.
Yeah. So what do you guys think, Pete, Chris?
My vote's Life is Strange, if for the only reason that everything works out fine in Pyre. Like, certain individuals have to stay in the downside, but their lives are pretty good there. The rebellion goes off pretty well. Like, stuff ends up okay. In Life is Strange, no matter what happens, something's going wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, the two endings of Life is Strange, both of them hit so hard for different reasons. So, I guess Life is Strange wins then, right? I think Life is Strange is our winner. Congratulations, Pyre, for coming so close. Life is Strange, come claim your DP. Next up, best
Trenchy?
horror.
Trenchy? DP?
Trenchy.
It's got to be the Trenchy.
It's got to be the Trenchies. You're right. Next category, best horror. We have Detention, Doki Doki Literature Club, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Sunless Sea, Hatoful Boyfriend, Final Fantasy X-2, and The Binding of Isaac.
Let's get all the bullshit off this list.
Yeah, let's
take
Final
Fantasy X-2 off the list.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X-2 goes off
the list.
It is terrifying.
Is this anything other than a 2, maybe 3-horse race between the first 3?
So for that reason, I'm just gonna have to back out because I honestly didn't play these 3 games, so I have to sit back on this one.
Yeah, The Binding of Isaac, not that
Binding
horrifying.
Binding of Isaac is grotesque. It's not horror.
Sunless Sea, not even that
not
good in a whole bunch of ways.
Yeah,
and it's not even a good representation of the Cthulhu mythos. Although
they try.
Sunless Skies looks pretty good.
And then Hatoful Boyfriend, ha 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 ha.
No! Don't you dare cross that out.
You can't be on both best. You can't win best comedy.
No. You guys. Okay, you
fine,
two assholes.
Fine. Explain yourself.
I told you to play the Bad Boys Love ending, and you guys refuse. You're like, oh, it's just a stupid dating game. And then I had to spell out what the secret ending to the game was, and you guys are still unconvinced that it goes to a dark place. It goes to a very dark place.
It's not that I don't think that it goes to a dark place. It's that no matter how dark that place is, it's not a girl being trapped in purgatory, living and dying over and over and over again, seeing her life play out before her eyes. Nor is it a computer program falling in love with you and murdering a bunch of people, or a woman going deep inside the recesses of her mind to bring her love's head into the depths of hell. So no, it's not as dark as any of those.
I also don't think you can win an award based on one ending.
I'm going to play this Bad Boys Love nonsense with you, and then you will say, ah, yes, ZP was right all along. Fine, cross it out.
Crossed out?
This just means you'll be even more vindicated when they redact their own award and they go grab the Trenchy out of the hands of that game and place it right in front of Hatoful Boyfriend. Just wait and bide your time, ZP.
This will be the great scandal in the history of the Deep Listens podcast. This moment.
Fine.
Removing the time that Undertale lost to Valda's Story Abyssal City.
I stand by that decision to my dying day.
Same, dog.
I'm going to ask that we cross out Hellblade because while I find the story to be depressing, there is a satisfaction to the end. Mm-hmm. And I would also argue that it's not a traditional horror.
Yeah, there are some terrifying moments when the game plays with darkness that I think are legitimately scary, and the voices in her head. But that is not a constant at all.
And now it's down to two games that I don't know, man. I think Doki Doki Literature Club is one of the scariest games I've played in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the question, I think.
We can't...
Is Best Horror scariest game, or is it the best scary game? Because
I think Doki Doki Literature Club is both.
I disagree. I think Detention is the better game. I think Doki Doki Literature Club is the scarier game. And I have a hard time Doki Doki Literature Club legitimately freaked me out in a way that no game ever, I don't think ever has, since I was like a child. I have not been legitimately scared by a game since like Resident Evil when I was like 8 or 9. And like one time with Silent Hill Origins. There was a jump scare in that got me. But Doki Doki Literature Club gets under your skin.
Yeah, and also Doki Doki Literature Club doesn't have jump scares. There are no cheap scares.
That's not true.
Okay, fine. There's one.
Yeah, when you find Sayori, that one's pretty.
Yeah.
Jumpish.
Yeah, and some of the scenes where it will like cut to gross stuff happening and then cut back. Like there are definitely jump scares in that game, but
they're earned. They're earned jump scares.
Yeah, it's not nonsensical. It's not like something jumps out of a closet or something. But
I've never seen a game wage complete psychological warfare on its audience since, like you said, Silent Hill Origins, quite like Doki Doki Literature Club.
Yeah, but Detention, man.
I know.
Some of the stuff that game does is just like, just from a scary perspective, I think some of the moments, like dealing with the different the ghosts, I think are pretty unsettling. I think some of the moments where you see flashbacks playing in front of your eyes, some of the stuff that you have to do to progress in that game, like slitting one of your own friends' throats and like putting together a puppet show and the puppets come to life. Like there are some legitimately unsettling things in that game. But I think the scariest thing in Detention is when you get to the end of the game and realize that there's nothing that Ray can do. That there's no winning.
I always interpreted the ending to be that Ray has ended the endless cycle of death in purgatory.
I interpreted it as it's going to go on forever because she's still trapped at that school. Even in the good ending, she is still trapped at that school. And I've seen the bad ending now, and in the bad ending, you just go to hell for giving up.
Look, Detention does dread well. It does that sort of nihilism well, but Doki Doki Literature Club is just scary as shit. And
it is deeply affecting and scary as shit. Like, okay, let's just say it. When Doki Doki Literature Club says your fucking name, like, I had to stop the game, I walked away, and I couldn't come to terms with the fact that the game had done that.
Yeah, I guess Doki Doki Literature Club gave me nightmares.
Right?
And I couldn't sleep for a whole night. I was fucked up for a night. That Detention didn't do that to me. But Detention I keep thinking about. Like, I keep wanting to play Detention, and because I think it's a better game. Like, I like reading all of the different items in that game. I like learning more about the game's context. I like all of the elegant puzzle design and level design. That game is just a masterclass in terms of thematic consistency and storytelling. But I guess this comes down to the same question. I think that Doki Doki Literature Club is one of the scariest games I've ever played. But Detention's just an excellent game.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, but I think this category is about rewarding peak scare, and DDLC is where that comes.
I agree. Doki Doki Literature Club just is the scariest, horrifyingest game in this category, and credit to Detention.
Yep.
Yeah, I can live with that. Doki Doki Literature Club is the best horror.
And I think this is just as I look at it, the toughest category we're going to have.
It's one of them. It's the most horror.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most horror and the scariest. So next up, congratulations for your trenchy Doki Doki Literature Club. Next up, Best Action. We have Hyper Light Drifter, Oni, Dust and Elysian Tale, Dead Cells, The Binding of Isaac, PUBG, so PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Let's go ahead.
Get Oni off that list.
Let's get Oni the fuck off this list. Let's get The Binding of Isaac the fuck off this list.
Yep.
I didn't like Dead Cells.
I think that Dead Cells. I agree.
Dead Cells has the potential to be a good game, but it's meh.
I think that the finished version of Dead Cells might be a contender in this category, but as of right now, it is still sort of polishing some of its final product. They're still releasing like active updates. It didn't have like all of its like enemy skins by the time we played this game.
So can I just the thing here is between Hyper Light Drifter and PUBG, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Buy Hellblade. Like, your action's okay, but not amazing. Dust you're kind of broken in spots.
For like 90% of the game.
Yeah. You just use like one attack and just spam it the whole time.
So we've got Hyper Light Drifter versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Now both good games. I think my argument for Hyper Light Drifter would be I think the variance in PUBG is too wide. Like sometimes I found myself with like a lot of action packed, really sort of tense moments. And other times I would just sort of get, spotted 2 minutes in and then I'm just out on that round.
Yeah, but I feel like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you get back into the game so quickly, even when you lose, that you're never really out of the tension. Now, you can avoid action, and it is actually very, very effective to just hide for long stretches. I could eat a sandwich and come in like in the top 20 in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds if I felt, if I got a good hidey hole. You can't eat a sandwich and play Hyper Light Drifter.
So like that's right, but if you want to actually get to the white knuckle like stakeout 1v1s or 2v2s of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you're not going to do that by hiding, because even if you get to the final 20 by finding a good spot and you're in the circle as it closes, the people that are going to be in the top 8 of that match are going to have found good items, armor, health packs. Like, they're going to have found better weapons than you. So you're going to make it into the top 20 and then instantly get killed by anybody who's actually good. So I don't think that guaranteeing a top 20 spot adds to any of the action here.
Yeah.
Now, I'd say that as far as like white knuckle tense, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds gives us the highest of highs, punctuated by massive lulls.
Yeah.
Okay, let me say one thing in favor of PUBG. I just got done with watching Danny O'Dwyer play 9 hours of PUBG for charity for Extra Life, and then I immediately spent the next 2 hours once he was done playing PUBG, and I felt just as enthused to play that game as if I had played it for the first or second time. Yeah. And you can play that game for 12 hours straight and not have the same experience. You can have just the jank be gloriously amazing, or just you get to second and then you get sniped. I feel motivated to play PUBG for at least another 2 to 3 years. I don't necessarily feel motivated to play Hyper Light Drifter after the second time I beat the game.
So I don't think we're jumping into I mean, I'm not going to call foul here, but the nature of PUBG is a repeatable multiplayer game, and the variance that you get comes from your interactions with other players. So in a lot of ways, that wasn't designed by the game. That was designed by the player base. And Hyper Light Drifter doesn't need a player base or a community in order to provide its good action.
I'm not gonna ding a game for being multiplayer.
But I don't think we can reward it, because Hyper Light Drifter wasn't designed to be multiplayer.
No, I mean, what?
Judge them by the same criteria.
Right. We should judge them by the stuff that they actually can go head head to head on.
Sure.
With just stuff like mechanical tightness. And when I think about a game that is tight and fluid and provides a reward for its players for skill, all right, yeah, I think about PUBG because it is for what it can be called a well-made shooter game. But when I think about Hyper Light Drifter, I'm thinking about tight movement, tight mobility, especially if you get good at the dashing ability, which is crucial in this game. I think about what we're going to talk about for some of the best mechanics later, like animation canceling for your weapons and guns, creating this seamless and explosive combat that you have to wait for these tight timings for in between sort of chaotic boss fights. Yeah, I've played some PlayerUnknown's and I've had those white knuckle experiences, but a lot of it gets lost. And the times where it gets lost in PUBG is where you're just sort of like running around and I don't see people yet. Maybe I want to fight, but people just aren't near me. I'm trying to be engrossed in the action, but maybe the player base is somewhere else. So like there's a time where you could be doing everything right and still not get rewarded in PlayerUnknown's Battleground. But the times where there are action lulls in Hyper Light Drifter, you get rewarded for all the other great shit in that game. So
I like both games quite a bit. I could go either way.
My big thing is there are moments when Hyper Light Drifter becomes an exploration and almost a Zelda-like game where you're just pixel hunting for specific runes and things to advance. And at no point in PUBG, there's plenty of times where you're just wandering around trying to find guns. And that's kind of... I mean, it's not actually boring because you need to find those guns or else someone will hunt you down and kill you. So there's a tension in PUBG at all times. You are never allowed to be completely downtime. Even if I was eating a sandwich, I would have headphones on because if I hear footsteps, someone needs to get shotgunned. Whereas in Hyper Light Drifter, there are definitely moments where the game becomes a lot more find the thing that you need to advance instead of action. And it's what separates PUBG from almost every other type of game I've ever played, is how 0 to 100 it is at all times, and that the tension can break at any moment.
Well, so let me throw this back at PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. When you lose or face a game over screen in Hyper Light Drifter, it's probably because you did something awesome and your enemies did something awesome and they came out on top. If you hit a game over screen in PlayerUnknown's Battleground, you could have just got sniped and had nothing to do with that.
That's true. The game could have decided that that fall was lethal, or hey, your aim's not going to show up this time, or oh, there's two circles. Which one's the real circle? That game's got a lot of bugs. It's not tight at all.
That PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds provides a higher high, but you're not going to get that all the time.
No.
And you can choose to not explore in Hyper Light Drifter and go get into combat. You can choose to go fight the bosses and do. I mean, and because Hyper Light Drifter can be beaten without activating all the nodes. In fact, you only have to defeat or to activate half of them to get to the end of the game. You can choose to do the more combat route. You have a way of playing Hyper Light Drifter in a much more action focused. The player who wants to be more exploratory can do that too. So it caters to the person who wants the action. PlayerUnknown's does, but a person who's trying to go and meet PlayerUnknown's Battleground halfway might get left hanging out there because they just got shot and now they have to restart or go back into matchmaking.
That's fine by me. I think where do people stand?
I agree with Billy's point mostly because I think Hyper Light Drifter is a more consistent action throughout.
That works for me.
All right, fine.
I like PUBG a whole lot, but man, some of that stuff is performance art. You just never know what's going to happen with PUBG.
That game is a work of art, is what you meant to say. It is a work of human art.
I have a hard time rewarding it for when a Jeep flies into the sky, though that is the best action. So, Trenchy goes to Hyper Light Drifter. Next up, Best Adventure. Wuppo,
There's just a lot of bullshit on this.
Jade Empire.
On this list.
There's a lot of bullshit in this category.
Dust and Elysian Tale, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2, and Mario Sunshine. This category is poorly defined.
Yeah, why don't we jump to the part where you guys argue about Final Fantasy and I vote for Hellblade?
There's nothing to argue. Gino, cross out Final Fantasy X-2 right now.
Fine. It's not a great adventure, you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Cross
YRP?
out Jade Empire.
Yeah.
Jade Empire.
Gone.
By Jade Empire, by Dust and Elysian Tale,
I don't
By
want casual
Mario
racism.
Sunshine?
by Mario Sunshine.
Hold on. I want to fight for Mario Sunshine.
Oh, God damn it.
Fine, fight for Mario Sunshine.
No, wait. Let's try to get the easy cuts out of the way first, guys.
Let's cut Mario Sunshine.
No?
Yes.
Got it.
All right. If it's 3-1 for cutting, I'm not going to put forth effort to say Mario Sunshine.
Fuck that game.
Fuck Flood. Fuck everything about those platforming bits. Like, you want to have an adventure, and then it just crushes your soul.
Fuck putting the idea in my head that Peach and Bowser had a kid.
Yeah, that was a little.
All right, step one, y'all got to get good at Flood because that unlocked the game for the skilled.
No.
Nope.
Look, we've talked about Mario Sunshine.
If you've ever watched a speedrun of that game, holy shit, Flood makes that happen.
If
Flood
you've ever
puts
watched
the
people who don't know how to speedrun that
Mario
game try and
puts
play,
Flood on its back, and then Flood puts the game on its back.
let me put it to you this way.
Pretty good.
As someone who's been watching a certain group of people try to play through and get every shine in Mario Sunshine, fuck that game. Some of the shines in that game, man.
Those, like, specific levels, like the one where you're piloting the leaf going down the water slide, or the pinball pachinko machine level, or the Skybird level, or the haunted house. There's so much bullshit.
There's
So
many
much.
bad.
All right, I'll say
Noki Noki Bay.
Why are we still talking about this?
I'll say for the Haunted House Resort level, that level did suck. So we
That
can
level
get rid of
is
Super Mario
garbage.
Sunshine because that level was honestly bad.
And Sandbird, and the pachinko machine.
So we've got Wuppo, Hellblade,
Manta
and Final
Ray?
Fantasy X.
All right, can we say real quick that I want to cross out Hellblade because I want it to be Wuppo versus Final Fantasy X?
I am down with the clown. We can do that. Let's do that. Gino, let's do this.
I personally won't. So let me put my cards on the table. I think Wuppo was the best adventure.
If we're going to talk about the actual
Let's do
best
this.
journey, it's really got to be Wuppo versus FF10.
All right.
Hellblade was a pretty good adventure, but you know what? It didn't.
So I didn't play this game, but let me just ask: this is probably as good of an adventure game as like a Devil May Cry kind of game. Like
What,
it's
Hellblade?
Yeah.
No,
Ooh, nope.
not action-wise. No.
I
What
also
it does.
want to start your review with, let me talk about a game I didn't play, but...
Yeah, right.
No. That's not how it plays. It
And
plays.
I would also argue playing Hellblade is the worst part.
I looked up a lot of these games that I didn't play so that if I had to chime in, I'd have at least one intelligent thing to say. But I didn't have anything intelligent to say about this one at this time.
Billy, thank you for making it Wuppo versus Final Fantasy X.
I played my part. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Let's do this. Wuppo versus Final Fantasy X.
So let me just get mine out of the way first.
Go.
My vote's Wuppo because
Oh, God damn you people.
I didn't play Final Fantasy X, so my vote doesn't count. But so moving on.
As the person who played both of these games,
I also played both of these games.
Wait, did ZombiePie play Wuppo?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
good. So Wuppo starts with the story of a little wum named Wuppo who's living in an apartment, and he's doing a shit job of paying his rent, and so he gets evicted. And when he gets evicted, he finds a little gun, and he goes on a magical adventure that takes him to the core of the earth, fighting a talking face that vomits mud. And if he just doesn't take this face out, he eventually ascends into the ethereal plane at certain points. You can go to Wondersplank.
Are we talking
and
about
there's
Final Fantasy VIII or Wuppo?
Wuppo.
Okay.
You can go to Wondersplank, and there's a theme park.
You can stand in line?
You can stand in line. You can go on rides. He eventually goes into some sort of weird communist utopia.
I thought the theme park was called the Golden Saucer. Am I talking about the wrong game?
That's a different game. Different quality of product. Though Kate Sith is in both.
Oh, no.
You eventually... there are weird like lip monsters they're like rats, and you need to deal with them, and you need to save someone's. Did you guys go and vote and earn money by voting at the city council?
I did. There were debates.
You can debate at the city council, and you get rewarded with money.
So
what an adventure!
I'm feeling Final Fantasy here.
I agree. I'm with Billy because I don't know.
ZP, you probably have articulate shit to say. Let me get my bullshit out of the way first.
Yes, let's do this.
There's more shit to pick up in Final Fantasy X.
So I will say, when I think of an adventure game, I do think about the journey from start to finish. Where do you start? Where do you end? What happened along the way? Okay. I think because I got there was like more politics and more like world strife in Final Fantasy X that had to be unlocked because it wasn't necessarily main story. And Wuppo had some of that too, because you could have just missed parts of that game, but Wuppo would have still been, sort of cohesive without it. I think Final Fantasy X, I had to like buckle in for the ride more than I had to for Wuppo. I knew that when I was playing Wuppo, I was just going to be chilling, hopping along, blop, blop to some bad guys, and that was hella fun. But I had to like buckle in for some of the twists and turns that Final Fantasy X was going to take me on, to different stretches of this fantastical world that was really well designed, and I liked exploring the world of Final Fantasy X. I felt like I wanted to go back and revisit places because I wanted to check up and see, hey, I did some kind of story plot change here. What might have happened back in this town? Like, oh, hey, look at what Blitzball results came through. I want to go back to Besaid and see like how people are doing. Like there were things that made me want to go back and revisit the world of Final Fantasy X, and Wuppo's stuff was like cool the first time, but then you kind of did your thing and you were done.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that when you do get the ability to explore Spira for the second time around, that it's such a pain in the ass to go to Besaid in certain locations.
Yeah, well, you know what's not a pain in the ass? When Wuppo leaves the physical realm and ascends into the ethereal plane to fast travel from place to place. That game starts with a tiny circle living in an apartment, and it ends in the center of the earth fighting a mud monster.
That's an adventure if I ever heard.
It sounds like you watched an anime.
That's
Gino.
A hero's journey.
Yeah.
Like we end up fighting like Sin incarnate, like and it's in this entire dreamscape, and like the protagonist was a Figment.
The worst part of Final Fantasy X.
Isn't he just like a big whale?
It's a big whale, but he's also your dad.
Space whale that's actually an abusive father who was an alcoholic when raising his child.
If you want to talk about what game has more magical bullshit, we should make a new category for that. Wuppo certainly goes into the ethereal plane, but you get flying space sin monster whales in Final Fantasy X, so I feel like that's a break even.
I feel like Wuppo...
Apples and oranges, really.
Wuppo really... You're not prepared for the adventure that Wuppo is sending you on.
Are you ever prepared for a Final Fantasy adventure?
Yes.
Maybe
the game
Gino,
begins
and you're in the 1%.
So just remember, Final Fantasy X begins. The first sequence, the main character is playing a water sport in a floating orb, and then he is pulled away to another dimension by a flying space whale. That's the first scene.
Sounds like a great
exactly.
adventure.
That sounds like
at 100%.
Yes. Starts at 100%.
First scene in Wuppo,
sense of adventure right off the bat.
The first scene in Wuppo, you're a little circle eating cotton candy and making a mess, just making a big mess. But then you feel the call to adventure. You get a tiny little bird that lives on your head and gives you advice. You find you find like movie reels and learn things about your landlord and how he's a piece of shit.
What we're talking about here is like the difference between like a fucking Stairway to Heaven song that starts off real slow and then gets great, or like a Master of Puppets song that's like intense the whole way through. Like I feel like they're both great, but now it's a flavor choice. But I just feel like who executes it better is the one who needs to be the winner. And I think that Wuppo is a great stairway adventure, but I feel like Final Fantasy X takes you at 100 and keeps you at 100 for a lot of that game.
So, Pete,
and there are more locations, more memorable moments, more memorable places, more memorable characters during that adventure in Final Fantasy X.
I'm not gonna knock Wuppo. It definitely has character and class, and I'm using class lightly.
And it's
here.
an adorable game.
It's so fucking cute, but once you see Wuppo, you're actually kind of done. I was kind of done when I saw Wuppo. I could replay Final Fantasy X because I want to re-experience that journey. Once you get the Wuppo
rush. Sometimes you need that Final Fantasy X rush.
Once you get that Wuppo journey, you've kind of had it spoiled. It's like hearing a joke twice. It doesn't work the same, but you can watch the Fast and the Furious series and it's still great, you know?
Oh god.
All right, so the winner's Final Fantasy X. I can live with that. There was no way for me to lose, so I'm happy about this.
Okay. Oh god, this category looks like.
So the winner. I'm sorry, Wuppo, but the winner is Final Fantasy X for Best Adventure. Next up, Best Character. This is a fucking murderer's row. Okay, we've got Chloe from Life is Strange, Maxine, aka Max from Life is Strange, Yuna from Final Fantasy X or X-2. Zoe from Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color, An from Persona 5, Yusuke from Persona 5, Makoto from Persona 5, Manly Tinderstaff from Pyre, Neku from The World Ends With You, Fong-Rei Shin from Detention, Oko-san from Hatoful Boyfriend, Senua.
You got it right the first time.
Senua from Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club, Mono from Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color, Brother from Final Fantasy X-2, Stanley from The Stanley Parable, and Sir Gilman from Pyre. So let's go ahead and take a knife to some of these. We need to pick one Persona 5 representative, I think.
You guys just duke it out and determine which Persona 5 character.
I think it should be Yusuke.
Which one's Makoto?
Makoto is the girl who's a year older than you, who's the class president.
She's good. But yeah, I think it should be Yusuke too.
Yusuke, the artist, like the painter?
The artist, yeah.
All right. If Pete's going to not fight till the death for An, that means two things. One, she's not going to win, and two, he wasn't really serious about his love, so...
Hey, listen. If I had to pick between fighting for An and fighting for Manly Tinderstaff, I know who I'm picking.
All right.
It's fair. So Yusuke, you win of the Persona 5 characters.
Now you need to cut it down to one Pyre character.
All right, we can get rid of Manly Tinderstaff, but let me map out his path to victory. It won't take long. It's very simple. Had Manly Tinderstaff imitated the most famous living tree in pop culture today and just said, "I am Manly Tinderstaff," the entire game, he would have won this category.
You know what? I'm going to give you at least an 8 out of 10 on that.
Thank you. If everyone will just accept that stipulation, we can cross them off.
I just want to say I really enjoy Manly Tinderstaff. Just his... He communicates uptight douchebag so well with no words, and it's
Look,
so
I had
good.
a hard time taking Falcon Ron off of the pre-list. Because my boy Falcon Ron was about to go deep into this bracket.
God. Bye-bye, Manly. And
can we get rid of Neku, too? I mean,
Neku.
Is that good about The World Ends With You?
No.
You can get rid of Oko-san from Hatoful Boyfriend.
Oh, thank God.
I'm not going to rep Oko-san. I actually think it's Azami that's the best character, but whatever.
I forgot Azami's name when I was nominated.
Why'd you put anything from Magic Pendule on here?
Because I'm cool with getting rid of Zoe, but Mono, let me just remind you something that Mono does. At the end of the game, he says, "I have no feelings."
he does say that. That's a good point.
And that's pretty great. And something else he does is there's a bad guy, and he's going to take Zoe and Taro's land, and so he wrenches the color out of a living man.
That's true, too. He does do that.
Those are both really good.
Big highs.
He is great, and now he can be gone.
Bye, Mono.
He's had his moment.
Brother
really feel that
from
married
Final
to
Fantasy.
Stanley Parable?
I don't think Stanley deserves to be here.
I would like to let Stanley get cut later.
Fine.
But
he's
like
getting
brother
cut.
from Final Fantasy, let's be real.
No. All
right, if you keep brother, I keep Stanley, okay?
He's loves life. He's the most.
He
He's a
loves
ray of
dancing.
sunshine in an abhorrent shit show of a game.
This is Riku's brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, are we talking
So-
about Kingdom Hearts 2? Because then I would circle back around. But if not,
No.
then forget it.
Sir Gilman.
Eh?
I want to hang on to Sir Gilman.
Why?
Why?
If it's really that much of a question, I guess I don't really have any support here. But I feel like of the party member characters that you can interact with and talk to, I actually feel like Sir Gilman has the most like robust depth of story behind him. Some of the other characters have great backgrounds, but for example, like Hedwyn has pretty much a vanilla character backstory. I mean, he's got a little bit of depth in character. The other party members, Ruki, has some spice and flair, but the ones that sort of stand out to me were Sir Gilman. Bertrude had a lot of character behind her. To me, I wanted to put one Pyre character up here, and it was actually I was torn between Bertrude and Gilman because those two party members, I felt like I wanted to learn about their history the most. So if they end up losing, that's fine.
Yeah, the problem you're just going to run into, Billy, they're good characters, but it's an ensemble game. None of them really count.
That's fair. But then we got to eliminate Yusuke now from Persona.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yusuke's the best. I will always remember Yusuke for striking the Christ pose. His interpretation of the Christ pose is one of the best things of this year.
And for a similar reason, like I like Yusuke and Sir Gillen because they were the most themselves at all times. They never turned themselves off. They were switched on their character mode 100%.
They are character actors.
Yeah.
So, remaining, we have Chloe, Maxine, Yuna,
we should get rid of one Final Fantasy character, and I think it should be Yuna.
All right, yeah, she's super boring. Get her out of here.
I think that our nominee, if we were going to have a nominee from Final Fantasy X, should have fucking been Auron, but whatever.
I did nominate. I thought I nominated Auron originally.
Is Auron not on this
list?
list?
Where the fuck is Auron?
ZP, can we sacrifice brother so we get Auron,
Absolutely.
who might actually
sacrifice brother so that we can have Auron.
All right,
okay.
We're making a hot,
baddest, coolest motherfucker in video games.
He's a bad man Majama, 100%.
Yes.
Is it time to pick our favorite Life is Strange character?
Yes, and it's 100% Chloe. The reason why it can't be Max is because the player is Max, and so my character of Max is different than your character of Max. There's no way we can't compare these two things.
Max is more interesting than Chloe, though.
I don't think so.
No, I agree with Billy. Max ends up becoming just a cipher. It's tabula rasa with Max.
Then get rid of them both.
No,
don't you dare.
No, we should keep Chloe, but we can't have Max. It's not because Max isn't a good character. It's because the way that I play Max is different than the way you play Max. So how are we going to compare our playthroughs?
Right,
I just think that Max, the range of character that Max can be, depending on your playthrough, just makes her so much more dynamic. Because they managed to make
you could also make Max contradict herself and be a disaster.
You can make her conflicted, but I think that Yes, she contains multitudes. There is a logical consistency that maintains throughout, and I think that having a character who can plausibly be any dimension of the different potential outcomes, I think is pretty interesting. Though I'm fine with I love both of those characters. They're both amazing.
Okay.
I'm cool with Chloe being the one who survives. Does anyone feel strongly about Senua?
No. She's cool, I guess.
I'm also willing to strike off Monica because it takes 2 hours for her character arc to really kick into gear. It's a great character arc, but it takes forever.
Yeah. It kicks into high-ass gear, though. It does.
It does.
It is it's great, but man, you have to play like an hour of it being just a visual novel, and she's just in the background twiddling her thumbs for way too long.
True.
But her poems, though.
Yeah, right.
Her poems are upsetting immediately.
Oh, yeah.
The best poem in the whole game, though, just while we're talking about this, is the first one from the girl who's angry all the time. That's a great poem.
The one that's just like
where she writes
barely
the spite
sentences?
poem where it's like, man, I fucking don't want to be here. I'm gonna write a
No,
spite poem.
The one where it's like birds fly, like frogs jump, so on and so forth. Humans can only try, but like I guess that's okay. Like that's the best poem in the whole game.
I don't know. I really
I could make a
enjoyed
literary argument for it too,
Okay.
but I won't.
I liked the poem where the girl is giving away the light, the jars of her light, and then she has none left.
That's pretty good too.
Okay, so right now the
Interesting.
remaining characters, for some reason Stanley is still here.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, Billy Wise.
I will let Stanley go because I got to like wild card in Orin.
Yeah.
I will say Stanley was hard because it's hard to grasp. It's almost like so me putting Stanley on this list was like best character putting in somebody from like Thomas Was Alone. They didn't actually speak, but them being in the game, like I don't know, they were such an integral part of the game and its story, and so much of the game's experience was wrapped around that character. Like it's like saying Thomas from Thomas Was Alone was a great character, and they are.
Well,
But I can see why they don't win this category, but I had to sort of throw that prop out to them.
I
as
mean,
being
the difference is Thomas has a personality, whereas Stanley is a cipher who is acted upon.
right, and I'm fine with Stanley losing, but yeah,
Can we?
I had to throw at least out
I think
at
it's-
least a nod.
Gino, can I ask you about Ray?
Yeah.
Is Ray interesting, or is the game just interesting?
I was gonna
I
bring
think-
that up as well.
I think Ray's dilemma and her pathos and her... I mean, the game is interesting because it is about Ray's entire history. I think that Ray is one of the most well-realized characters I've played in a very long time. She's got her... From her time with her parents to her moments in school to falling in love, losing that love, acting out in vengeance, bringing down the love, causing the love of her life to be murdered brutally, causing her teacher to be exiled, and then ultimately ending her life and being stuck in a purgatory, looping over and over and over again. And then seeing all the different potential outcomes that Ray could have had, and kind of understanding how through all of these repetitions through the years, she has still been trying to atone for this primary sin that can never be fixed. I think it's just such a compelling story.
Gino, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And maybe I'm
And is it
splitting,
Ray?
Yeah.
maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but I think Ray's biography is interesting, but I don't think she's interesting. Like I couldn't tell you any of her qualities, like anything about who she is. I could just tell you what she's done. And again, maybe that's splitting hairs. Maybe all we are is what we've done.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of one of the central arguments of the game is you are the sum of the actions you've taken. And if you can't, and basically there's nothing more she can do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So for me, it's hard because Orin, he's a badass. He's very cool. I like him a lot.
Is he the one-armed guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So wait, is Ray
Bonus
still
points because I
in?
know who he is.
Is Ray
Yeah.
still in this? I don't know.
Yes.
I feel like Pete's points of like the backstory is interesting, but what part of the player's agency makes her a great character in the
I don't
game?
think that the player's agency necessarily makes her a great character so much as I think she has a very compelling story told incredibly well, and I think that her path through the game is really interesting.
So
I don't think
let me
she's
ask
better
this.
realized than Chloe, though.
No, but
Right.
I think she's better realized than Orin.
I think this is the actual choice. It's going to be Chloe in the finals versus either Orin or Ray. I didn't play the tension, so I can't speak to Ray, but I know that Orin as a character does so much for the story as far as like before you meet Orin, you don't have that much info about the first go round of this whole ceremony or journey that they're trying to do. I forget what it's called.
the sending, the final
Yeah.
summoning.
Yeah, the final summoning. You don't have that much info, but then Orin's like, oh yeah, I was in the OG squad. So here's me with me being a badass character, but also bringing in the history of this entire world. And as a character, he himself in isolation is interesting, but also enhances the rest of the story. So that does a lot of work for me. Again, I didn't play Detention, but it sounds like this character doesn't do as much for enriching the entire narrative.
Yeah, and he's the enzyme that results in Titus's character transformation from the fish out of water doofus to the mature, self-actualized adult in the end.
Well, Ray doesn't catalyze the story because she is the story. Like, the game is her story from start to finish. She's not a bit player in someone else's story. The thing for me is Orin is a really interesting character. I love him. He's a badass. But isn't he just a stock Japanese Yojimbo character?
No, but he looks and appears to be that, and then you learn more about how he was not always the stock Yojimbo character in the Jek Spheres. You learn about how he was this kind of goofy monk who really didn't know what he was signing up for when he was a part of Lord Braska's pilgrimage.
I mean, I think yes, Orin takes from the goofy, from like not goofy, like stereotypical swordsman model, but they use that more just from an art perspective. And if you were a blind character, like if you were blind and wasn't looking at Orin's aesthetic and just heard the things that he had to say and had to contribute to the narrative and the story, that part goes away, and you can reduce what a character is. I mean, I guess we shouldn't put so much weight on a character's visual aesthetic for best character.
No,
maybe
I'm
Manly
not.
Tinderstaff's hairdo, puts in a lot of work and put him on the list, but I think their contribution to the narrative and contribution to the world and how enriched they are themselves is how we should judge a character for being best. And I think Orin does that a lot. But again, I didn't play Detention, so I'm really one-sided here.
And Pete, you did not play Final Fantasy X.
No.
So
I would say of Detention and of Ray and Chloe, I'd pick Chloe. So
yeah, I mean, of Ray and Chloe and Orin, I'd pick Chloe.
I would probably also pick Chloe.
Just pick the winner. We don't need to find out who's number two.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's just pick the winner.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
Tied for second, Orin and Fong-Ray Shin. And in first place, Chloe.
Wow, that got way easier than I imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That was so easy. I like that Chloe was the first person I put on the best character list because I was like, well, yeah.
Sure.
Of course. Next up, best soundtrack. We have Hyper Light Drifter, Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, Mario Sunshine, Persona 5, Final Fantasy X-2, The World Ends With You, Pyre, and Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color.
Okay, I'm not sure if a DS game can win this category.
I like The World Ends With You's soundtrack, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
So I'll
make a quick cut here. I don't need Mario Sunshine to be on here, but I will say, when you take standard Mario games music and you make them into what Mario Sunshine made them, that was taking something old and they added a great twist, but it's not going to win best soundtrack.
That's fine.
I think they breathed a huge breath of fresh air into the Mario audio aesthetic, but it's not going to take them all the way to the finish line here.
There are Mario Party soundtracks that are better than Mario Sunshine soundtrack.
That's
you
fine.
Shut your blasphemous mouth.
How many songs are there in Magic Pendule?
A lot. I actually listened to the whole soundtrack just to make sure that it belonged on this list, and
Gino,
that
who
soundtrack's
hurt
good.
you if you were listening to the Magic Pendule OST? Who hurt you?
Magic Pendule did.
I'll say the opening soundtrack, like the opening theme of this game, is what made me say, "Oh yeah, Magic Pendule actually was kind of lit on its soundtrack." Except the chorus goes red, yellow, orange, green, and blue, but like it misses part of the Roy G bib. Like it was incomplete, Gino.
I'm sorry. So for me, Hyper Light Drifter, I could lose.
No,
I think it's.
I'm gonna fight hard.
I would also fight hard. I like postmodern minimalism in my soundtracks.
Okay. So which of the Final Fantasy X? Which of the 10s?
Well, 10-2 needs to go.
I like 10-2's
concert.
I like 10-2's soundtrack more than 10.
What?
I'll say
Controversial opinion alert.
The Besaid theme.
It's really good,
so
but
good.
Man, that funk in Final Fantasy X-2, it's got the funk.
What about the death metal?
What about Memories of Light Waves? That's such a good song. Fine, I'll
Two
cut
to
10
one,
too.
you know. Yeah.
I'll cut 10 too. Persona 5, I can lose.
I can also lose Persona 5.
Yeah.
I want
I
to
like
make
it,
something
but it's
kind of
not great.
controversial. I want to cut Pyre here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And
It's been cut.
I'll say this because I don't want to cut Pyre lightly, and I want to make sure that I explain quickly why I am down to cut Pyre. When I think about the musical contributions of Darren Korb to Bastion and Transistor and Pyre, the way the world was created in Bastion and Transistor was heavily dependent on the atmospheric music of those games. Bastion and Transistor both put a lot of weight on how the music made you feel as you were walking through that level. You really aren't walking through levels so much in Pyre, and once the game opens up, you're not necessarily walking through anything, you're just kind of flying around. There were parts where Darren Korb got on the guitar and played. When you sailed through the ocean, I think for the first time, he like the minstrel played a song that was like a live recording of Darren singing. Fantastic music in isolation, but I'm not gonna put the same kind of weight as Hyper Light Drifter, Final Fantasy X, even Life is Strange. I think Life is Strange is going to be hard for me to keep. I'll fight. I mean, I'll listen to you guys fight for it, but I think that it's really just like a couple of good songs that got put on a mixtape. So I'm down to lose Pyre, and I think the next that should go is Life is Strange.
No.
I think I lose Magic
really
Pendulum.
liked.
Then
I
Magic
really
Pendulum.
like. Oh fuck! I have to choose between
If you
my
gotta
children.
keep one, Magic Pendulum or Life is Strange.
So, Life is Strange's licensed music is excellent, I think. Like, I listen to that music regularly. I think it's really well done, but it is licensed music, so I don't know how to weight that against a bunch of original compositions. I think that the original composition for Life is Strange is not as standout as the emotional punctuations that are done with the licensed stuff. So I think Life is Strange as a mixtape to listen to
Great.
is one of the most enjoyable and listenable soundtracks. But damn, Magic Pendulum's good and weird. That soundtrack.
Magic Pendulum's good and weird, but let's be real. Is it going to beat both Final Fantasy and Hyper Light Drifter?
I think personally, if we're cutting Magic Pendulum and Life is Strange, which I can allow. I mean, I love both of those soundtracks, but if we're cutting both of those, I don't know that I'm okay with that, because I would rather cut Hyper Light Drifter than either of these.
All right, then let's fight.
I think we should get rid of Life is Strange then. I mean, I do think you have to not penalize it, but I don't think you get as much credit for licensing music as creating it.
Yeah, I guess so, but I think it's all just so tonally on the same note, and it weaves together a bunch of different bands to make a cohesive whole. But I can lose it, even though I really enjoy that soundtrack.
Fair enough.
Okay, so it's Hyper Light Drifter, Final Fantasy X, and Magic Pendulum: The Quest for Color.
So I have listened to Hyper Light Drifter full soundtrack and Final Fantasy X full soundtrack just like looping at work. So both of these games had great soundtracks in their actual playthroughs, and then you wanted to listen to them again when you weren't playing the game. I didn't feel that way for Magic Pendulum.
So I had the exact same experience, except I didn't feel that way for Hyper Light Drifter. I've listened to Final Fantasy X and Magic Pendulum soundtracks on loop.
Gino, I think the problem you're going to face here is I think you're just going to get outvoted on Magic Pendulum. I think that is what it is.
This is my Alamo.
I'm going to vote to cut Magic Pendulum.
I would also vote.
That's fine. But now, from Hell's Heart, I strike at the Final Fantasy X has a better soundtrack than Hyper Light Drifter.
All right, so let's go here. I'm gonna take a hot take at Final Fantasy X. Not that great of a battle theme, honestly.
That's fine.
I agree. It's the worst battle theme in the entire franchise.
And
that's
you
not
have
true,
to
but
listen
it's
to
not a great
that
battle theme.
more than any other theme.
Sure, but then there are the other songs, and
There are the other songs,
are
and
really
some are great, some are great. I like the Besaid theme. I like Xanarkin theme. They even have like a sweet like rock Xanarkin remix. that shit was cool too. They had what was it, like what's it called, like the ceremony or like the sacred ritual song.
Seki Dane is pretty good.
No,
those
okay.
were
Well, stop.
Final Fantasy X had good stuff as a just cohesive. So, all right, here's my bid for Hyper Light Drifter. In a game with no words, everything else is just has to be tonally set by environment and music. And the music in Hyper Light Drifter created something with its visuals and its music that just those two things did way more work than the entire cornucopia of stuff in Final Fantasy X. Like, so just the soundtrack in Final Fantasy X didn't put in as much work as Hyper Light Drifter's soundtrack had to do. They were both successful, but I think Hyper Light Drifter's is the bigger success here. Plus, I think if you took out some of the music in Final Fantasy X and just like replaced it with other Final Fantasy music, you'd see no difference. It didn't have as much uniqueness.
I'm not gonna ding a game for its franchise having excellent music throughout.
All right, so I will say that the music in Hyper Light Drifter puts in as much work as like a Stanley Kubrick score for like his films.
Okay, Billy's going insane.
No, I'm serious. 100% serious.
Are you saying that 2001 shouldn't have also Sprach Zarathustra?
What I'm saying is, how do you make a game with no words work? It has to be the music. And it nailed it. Fucking nailed it.
I just don't like listening to a lot of it. It's so sparse, and I get it. It works in the game, but I just don't.
Melodic and atmospheric, and lots of the Final Fantasy music is that too. We're talking about two primarily instrumental soundtracks that their job is to create a world and a world of atmosphere around them, and Final Fantasy's music doesn't put in as much of that job as Hyper Light Drifters does.
So it looks like
them both.
CP's the swing vote here. I feel like you two have reached an impasse,
Yeah.
and I didn't play FFX, so I don't know.
And I am the big fan of postmodern minimalism. Like, I'm a diehard supporter of, like, this Philip Glass, but also I love Final Fantasy X. Oh, I could go either way. Because I like how Hyper Light Drifter creates this sense of isolationism with its melodic tunes. But I think Final Fantasy X gave me more joy. And there were tracks that I just listened to over and over again. So I think my vote would have to go to Final Fantasy X.
Okay. So Final Fantasy X, I think, pulls it out. Hyper Light Drifter is really good.
That's a hard loss, but I feel like anybody on this list that could beat Hyper Light Drifter is probably going to be Final Fantasy X. I don't think anybody else could beat Hyper Light Drifter. I think they were my personal final two. No, I had Life is Strange and Final Fantasy X tied for second.
Okay. So there we go. The winner of Best Soundtrack is Final Fantasy X. The second year in a row that a Final Fantasy game has won our Best Soundtrack, and that will continue in perpetuity.
Man, if I had known that, I would have just thrown the variety card out there.
Don't worry, Billy. We're going to be playing Final Fantasy 13 this year or next year.
Fuck game soundtrack. Okay, next up we have Prettiest Game, and the nominees are Hyper Light Drifter, Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color, Persona 5, Pyre, The World Ends With You, Detention, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and Doki Doki Literature Club.
Why are some of them on this list?
I'm going to get rid of Detention.
Sure.
That was a mistake. That game looks really...
Doki Doki Literature Club should also be... I think I accidentally... I was going to put Doki Doki Literature Club as best soundtrack as a joke.
It was on Best Soundtrack as a joke for a bit, and then I removed it before the podcast started. Prettiest Game, because it's got the prettiest girls.
The girls, very pretty.
You can take this shit off right now.
But, yeah, no. What's the art for Magic Pendule, too?
Art? I mean...
I don't know if...
It's
I don't know if you saw that most artistic nightmare monster.
The cell shading's really pretty.
Get off.
Bye, Magic Pendule. Okay, let's keep knifing. Bye, World Ends With You.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Bye, Pyre.
Oh no.
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 You guys want Pyre? We can talk
Life
I'm
is
gonna say why
Life is Strange doesn't have the best art direction. I feel like you spend so much time on school campus, and that is just it does what it needs to do, but it's
the
just
campus is pretty vanilla.
monotonous.
It doesn't do anything that
school
Hellblade
campus
doesn't
is
do
very
better.
monotonous.
Yeah, I think Life is Strange. There are some great shots, but I don't think that it is operating at the high level.
Life is Strange might have been
Some of these other games
picturesque, but not pretty.
Okay.
It might have been like isolated moments of stop and take your attention, but not necessarily pretty.
The shot at sunset with the whales on the beach, that's pretty
Yeah,
great.
that was a great scene actually. But
Like there are a bunch of great scenes,
But
or
this
when
is
there's
not
two
great
moons.
scene, or best
Yeah.
shot. This is overall art
Yeah.
design and prettiness.
Yeah, the cinematography in Life is Strange is really good. So I'm gonna throw out Final Fantasy X. I don't think it's as pretty as these other games that are still on
It's
the list.
got the
Also-
prettiest pre-rendering, but the rest of the game is just not that great.
Also,
At the
Gino,
time,
you
it
and
was
I
really
played
pretty.
the HD remaster of Final Fantasy X, and the HD remaster is fucking problematic. It's horribly problematic, and
It's worse. It's worse
Yeah.
than the PS2 version. Honestly, what they did to some of the character models actually made the game less attractive. But
Yeah.
I think even still, because this game is in a category with games that have come out since, it just some of it was technical excellence at the time, and it is not technically excellent anymore.
It's
True.
putting
What
it
jumps
on
out
the
at
wall.
me is the iconic scene of Titus and Yuna in the water with the fireflies and shit. Like that's great, beautiful scene, touching. That was a scene that was a work of art. Just the whole game itself, the rest of the 100 hours you put into that game is a beautiful world that just wasn't as executed as well as it could be, both by its limitations, by like a PlayStation like time frame, but also I guess in its remaster didn't do much better.
No.
Yeah, I'm fine with losing Final Fantasy X here.
Okay.
So Hyper Light Drifter, Persona 5, and Pyre and Hellblade. I'm honestly gonna say Persona 5 can probably go.
I will
What?
agree,
No.
but here's what I'll say. All the characters in Persona are pretty. I
It's the
think
prettiest,
that
as we all know.
right. I think actually, if Persona, if this game genre
What if you judge
was
the game by its UI?
yeah, like that's what I was gonna say. If it's
fuck.
if it's like aesthetic was being true to form, if that's what this genre was all about, then yeah, Persona probably delivers the most like cohesive package of art style. But
Yeah, if this was a best style category.
yeah, if it was like
Best
most
Persona
like hella
use.
style game, Persona probably gets it. And best fashion, you know, it's almost certainly Persona.
Then all of a sudden, The World Ends With You comes back from the grave.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, right. If we're talking
Best color
fashion.
wheel, best use of color.
Magic Pen.
Best use of color is
Best
Oh.
pins.
best
But-
use of color. I think is Pyre. That game is fucking gorgeous. So, are we cool with losing Persona 5?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
So we've got Hellblade, Pyre, and Hyper Light Drifter. One of these games is not like the others, and I feel that Hellblade, it operates in a much darker palette, whereas Hyper Light Drifter and Pyre are a lot more colorful. And I don't know if that's necessarily
Can I
a
say
knock
one
on
thing
Hellblade.
to Hellblade though before you think about cutting it off? Like
Oh, I'm not. I'm
seeing
just
the
articulating
human
something.
emotion out of the character models adds so much to Hellblade that I think that is part of like the factor of like graphics and prettiness. Like seeing Senua's anguish, like mental and physical anguish, and seeing that emotion, it just is beautiful that they were able to convey that in a game.
I think that would be the technical component of our next category, though.
Yeah, best performance. Yeah, is coming up.
That would be
So-
like saying Until Dawn was the prettiest game because it like most captured human emotion, facial recognition. So like I see where it deserves props, but I don't think I would give it prettiest game. Maybe most well rendered human emotion simulator. Sure.
No. So the reason why I would argue for Hellblade staying here is that it manages to render a beautiful world and also dynamically change that world in a way that I think is really visually interesting. When Senua uses her ability to focus and alter the world around her, either by, interacting with some sort of illusion or seeing runes, I think that Hellblade really asks you to see beauty in the world in a way that you normally aren't able to. Like, it is mostly a game, outside of the combat, it is a game about finding hidden meaning and secret beauty in a world that is otherwise devoid of it. And I think that that's a really... and it executes it well. Like, it's a really visually interesting game. So I have a hard time cutting it, because ultimately the things that I love about Pyre and Hyper Light Drifter are the parts where I could screenshot it, and it's gorgeous. Like, but I'm not knocking either of those games. I think they're both amazing and really visually interesting. But the part that makes Hellblade beautiful is the part where I'm playing it and seeing how the world can change depending on how I look at things. Versus the other two games where I think that the art is amazing, but it's mostly static.
Yeah, so I think I can make this easier. I'm probably going to fight the hardest for Hyper Light Drifter, but I don't think it'll get my vote before Pyre gets my vote.
So
by taking out Hyper Light Drifter?
I would be okay losing Hyper Light Drifter unless somebody else wants to fight with me, but if I have to choose between Hyper Light Drifter and Pyre, I'd probably choose Pyre.
So
now,
Hyper Light Drifter has my vote. I think it's the prettiest game. I'm always going to this might be a personal bias, but I'm always going to pick a game where the determining factor isn't just realism. Like, Hellblade's goal is to look as real as possible. I think that's just inherently less interesting than a game that's doing something different.
I guess I'm now back on the Hyper Light Drifter bandwagon.
I would vote for Hyper Light Drifter over Pyre, even though my personal vote is Hellblade.
Yeah, so that's... I agree, because
I think than I thought.
I agree, just because Pyre, I think, is it's yet another game from Supergiant Games, and the style. This is the third game in that style, and I think it's a gorgeous style.
Yeah, good on them for perfecting and honing in their craft and their style, but I feel like it is them using what is in their toolbox.
Can we just nod though, really quick, that this is a hand-drawn game?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, Pyre is an amazing game.
Absolutely gorgeous.
And with that, we have Hyper Light Drifter and Hellblade.
God, this is so weird. How did like an 8-bit game beat a hand-drawn game though? Like, how did
because the medium isn't the sum of its parts.
Yeah, you're right. Like, using 8-bit graphics beautifully is great. And I think You
didn't play Hellblade.
The whole time we've been talking about this, I've been just constantly watching Hellblade's like best trailers and best clips and actual gameplay. So I've seen a lot of I've been watching it this whole time. And if we're talking about just art, I don't have to have actually gotten my hands into the mechanics to know what the game's beauty has to offer. Now, I'll say I didn't play it for 20 hours, but
it's like 10.
Yeah, whatever. But you also don't play Hyper Light Drifter for that long. Well, I did.
No, I don't think the time is thing. Like, there are some moments in Hellblade, like the sequence with the masks where you're looking through two different versions of the same world, that I think is really visually striking. The juxtaposition between the cool blues and blacks with then this kind of bright white and cream colored world just jumping in between them, seeing the different renditions of reality that you end up seeing. It just does a lot visually with the idea of, even including kind of Senua's mental state into the visuals that you see. Having her mental state impact the state of the world around you. It's just a visual cohesion that you don't see. It's a mechanical thing, how that game looks, in a way that Hyper Light Drifter isn't. And it pains me because some of the scenes where you're like on the lily pads in I guess it's the frog domain in Hyper Light Drifter, and there are the bits of the giant titan that are just poking up through the water. Like, all the moments where you see a titan broken on the rocks or poking up through a lake, it's amazing. It's really gorgeous. But I could get a poster of Hyper Light Drifter from some of those great scenes, and I feel like I would get the experience. Hellblade is just a different... You have to play it. You have to play it to understand exactly how much the visuals of that game impact it. And I think it's also, like, not just saying, you know, the meaning of the visuals. I think it's also very gorgeous. So what do you think, Pete? You're the only one who's played both of them who isn't voting Hellblade.
I made my point at the beginning, right? I just think it's inherently more interesting when a game tries to do something other than be as realistic as possible, right? Like, it's a false analogy, but I'm going to make it anyway. Like, there's a reason why hyper-realism in art has sort of faded by the wayside. Now, the reason is because photography was invented, but let's just sort of gloss over that for a second. So regardless, my vote is Hyper Light Drifter.
But I don't think it's hyper-realism.
I think
if the game could have done hyper-realism further, it would have.
It's hyper, like, even if, Gino, I get your point that it's sort of adjusting things for her mental state, but it's adjusting things for her mental state as if you were experiencing that mental state in a real-world environment.
Sure, but I think
like
that
to highlight...
seeing rocks come to life and start talking to you, or seeing the interpretation of Norse hell, like, those are not realistic scenarios. Yes, it's rendered in a realistic style, like, things look like human beings, but it is such a stretch. Like, I wouldn't call the Avengers films when people are fighting, you know, giant comic book monsters. Yes, it looks like those are real humans acting, but the circumstances are so extreme that I think it takes on... You can't really say that it's just realism.
But the goal is always to make it, like, look as real as possible. And I think that's an inherently less interesting goal. And honestly, Gino, your argument's good and I understand it, but it's not going to sway me on this point.
Okay.
I'm not swayed, and I know that I didn't play Hellblade, but I am...
As someone who hasn't played the game, I'm not swayed.
Well, hey, we're talking about the art style of the game, and I need to have played a lot less of the game to just be able to appreciate what art did.
What was ZP's vote?
I was actually with Hellblade. I'm going to change my vote to Magic Penguin so as that we can move on and give it to Hyper Light Drifter.
Fuck. All right, Hyper Light Drifter wins, and Magic Pendule comes in second. Weird. With 2 votes. Yeah,
so
Magic Pendule, the Quest for Color.
I wanted to say one last thing about Hyper Light Drifter that came to my mind. I didn't get to make the point before ZP ended the discussion, but I think that
I'm sorry.
That was smart. Okay. That was a good.
I think that what I've seen from Hellblade tells me that dev team said, we're going to use this kind of art style. We have so much at our disposal. They executed well. But when I think about what Hyper Light Drifter did with an 8-bit art style, and I'm thinking of a couple of specific scenes, like when you are looking down off the top of the mountain onto the cityscape, being able to achieve something as sort of like crisp and deep as that shot with 8-bit graphics was stunning. And like the hub world being so rich in 8-bit graphics was stunning, and all the scenes with the giants. I mean, doing more with less wins my vote here. Hellblade executed a lot, and they had a lot, and Hyper Light Drifter executed a lot with very little.
Okay.
That's fair. So next category, Best Performance / Voice Acting. We have Chloe from Life is Strange, Max from Life is Strange, Auron from Final Fantasy X. That's where Auron was. He was in this category. That's why I remembered it. Manly Tinderstaff from Pyre.
Yep.
Mono from Magic Pendule, The Quest for Color.
Gino.
Senua from Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club. And Brother from Final Fantasy X-2.
How did Magic Pendule make it into so many categories?
Yeah, Gino, what did you do when you made this document?
I meant to...
I have no feelings.
Oh no, we have a new entrant. Okay, what are we adding?
And there goes Mono. Mono died.
Also, Manly Tinderstaff.
Narrator from Stanley. Oh God.
No,
Sorry,
good pick. That's a.
I put it back. Sorry, when Gino said to look over this, I copy pasted the whole list, and I didn't put that one on the real one.
That's fair. So we got a surprise. A surprise entrant has joined the narrator from the Stanley Parable. That's a good call.
How much does Monica actually say? I know the stuff she says.
You can get rid of her. She does say one line, and it's very, very frightening, but you can go ahead and get rid of Monica. But... It's one of the best, most effective uses of a single line.
Yeah. By Monica and her song.
I like Oron, but I don't feel like that's a great performance. Like, I'm gonna rep Brother from Final Fantasy X-2 as best performance.
Can we hang on to Oron
agree.
for a second? I feel like other people can get cut before Oron gets cut.
Okay.
Why do you care
Can we
what
cut down?
order
Can we
people
cut?
get
Can we
cut?
cut our Life is Strange characters to one again? That's my simple request.
Absolutely.
I think it's Chloe.
Yeah, absolutely, it's Chloe.
Fine.
Sure. Okay.
But I like Max a lot.
So do I.
They're both really good.
Yeah.
So we've got Chloe, Senua, Brother, and narrator from Stanley Parable. Get out of here, Brother.
What?
Time has
Okay,
come
then
for you.
I'm going to ask that we bring back Oron.
Nope.
I would vote for Oron coming back.
No.
That's gone.
Okay, fine.
Because the winner here is either Chloe or Senua, I think.
Yeah, the narrator. So I think if it was just voice acting, the narrator would have a fair argument. But I don't think he can beat Senua when we bring in best performance overall.
Yeah, like I think the narrator is very, very dry,
Funny.
very funny.
I'm happy that narrator got to final 3. I'm
Okay.
happy because
Bullshit.
So narrator from Stanley Parable fills the same kind of role as the narrator from Thomas Was Alone. Thomas Was Alone did it better. Stanley Parable, good nod. Way to get to the final 3. Thanks
Did
for
he
playing.
win that year?
I think he did.
I'm pretty sure Thomas Was Alone's one did win that.
Okay.
I think I have that written on paper like an idiot.
Yeah,
instead
right?
of
Like
in-
some sort of
in a
caveman.
sheet.
All right, well, regardless.
All right, Senua versus Chloe.
Senua, I mean, I think
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
one's kind of easy.
Senua.
Yeah.
Yeah, Senua.
I don't have any problem with that. I actually think from what I've seen and heard of Hellblade, I actually would probably agree. I haven't even played the game, but I think they probably did a better performance.
Mocapping and acting and being a part of the development process for a character is a monumental task.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive.
Yeah, the best of that year was not Thomas. The character of the year was John
Well, this is best
from
performance.
To the
voice
Moon?
acting.
from To the Moon. Oh yeah, let me.
We might not have
I
had
mean-
voice acting as a genre that year, which is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we had it as. Yeah, I don't think we had it as a category.
Okay.
This
We
was
had
newer.
best character, but that didn't really. It wasn't really.
So
same category.
Senua wins.
Senua.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Sounds good.
Oh man, this category looks like it's going to be painful.
Yeah, best mechanic.
Oh,
This is a bloodbath.
This
Best
is gonna
mechanic.
hurt.
We've got social capital from Wuppo. We've got gun canceling from Hyper Light Drifter. You can tell who nominated that. We've got rewinding time from Life is Strange. We've got the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. We've got drawing from Magic Pendril, The Quest for Color.
God damn it,
We've
Gino.
No, that was
We've
okay.
got-
that one's legitimately impressive. This is the one category maybe Magic Pencil should be in.
We got Dress Spheres from Final Fantasy X-2. We've got Pubga from Pubga. We've got The Trials from Pyre. Fashion Trends from The World Ends With You.
That one should be
See-
here.
Seeing Hidden Realities from Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. Playable Experiments from The Magic School Bus Explores the Ocean. The End from Doki Doki Literature Club. And Losing Party Members from Pyre.
All right. So,
Social
I'm gonna-
capital.
first off-
cross that one off.
yeah.
Oh, but that's so good.
I have a question.
I got to
real
debate
quick,
for money.
Just like clarification. I don't know if you saw my comment, Gino, but is like the trials and losing party members from Pyre the same thing?
Yeah, I would put that as the same thing. Let's consolidate that.
Yeah. So
Because-
let's just make it one.
Okay.
Yeah, Charles. We can get rid of The World Ends With You, the fashion trends.
Yep, though that was cool.
Yeah.
Dress spheres. Bye.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, Dress Spheres in Final Fantasy X-2, good idea, poor execution.
Oh, well, we get to see if they executed on it in Final Fantasy 13 in 2018, Gino.
Can
One
we
day.
can we say the same thing about drawing and Magic Pendulum? Good idea, poor
Yes.
execution.
Good idea,
Yeah,
poor execution.
definitely. Well, so
Though
the only thing that I would
The
object
execution,
on,
the execution of the thing coming to life, great. The part where you have to play it, not so great. But we nominated the part where you draw it and then it comes to life. That's pretty good. It's amazing to watch the things without legs animate.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Sort of
I'm
wiggle.
fine with it not being the winner, but I wanted it to get crossed out like 10 crossouts from now. It needed to get into like the final 5. So can we just
Okay.
pretend that it did?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Drawing got further.
You know what? I've been repping Final Fantasy X real hard, but I feel like the sphere grid is so Byzantine and unnecessarily so that you could cross it out.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's fair.
Now I feel like
It's-
the PUBG joke needs to end too.
No, it's the funnest game to play.
Yeah, no, PUBG is well built.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
the
can't
part-
have the whole game be its mechanic.
It's the format of the game that is being
Yes.
nominated.
I'll allow
And
it. Yeah, I'll allow it.
So now you're talking about just a battle royale as the whole mechanic? Okay,
No.
sure.
With
Damn
this-
straight.
The weapon shut up, the circles.
With the finding of the items and the
Yeah.
plane,
What?
it's all there.
Sure.
Can we get rid of
don't
Magic
know.
School Bus?
Yeah, we can get rid of the Magic School Bus.
Wait, how did we have Magic School Bus get eliminated after fucking Final Fantasy X?
Because the order,
Because the order doesn't matter.
Billy's the only one who cares about the order.
Okay. I actually don't think gun canceling is the best mechanic in Hyper Light Drifter. I think it's the dodging mechanic and
So I wanted to. So let me try to make this. Let me try to change this category. I want to say animation canceling
That's fine, but I don't
canceling
I
because
don't actually
in
care about
in previous
canceling.
years. In previous years of this, we had, for example, the skill cancel from Game of the Year Vault Story Abyssal City come through as one of the contenders for best mechanic.
you
and-
weren't joking. He really does save Lawless Story whenever he has a chance.
Yeah, he does.
And I think animation canceling here should be seriously considered as a best mechanic.
I think that worked the year we did it, and we shouldn't do it again.
All right.
I don't want to. Every game that has an animation cancel, we can't always have it show up. Whatever game it was,
That's
it can't
okay.
always be a contender for best mechanic.
Let me say one thing nice about it, and then we can kill it. Fair?
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
So on my initial playthroughs of Hyper Light Drifter, because I played the game three or four times now, I played it in a very much like run away and deal damage when I can kind of play style. And when I learned what animations could be canceled, I found that me playing that game became so much more complex and fluid that it was almost like button input art in a similar way that watching like a really good Marvel vs. Capcom player would have like just flawless execution and get just fill the screen with hot bullshit. I could do the same thing in Hyper Light Drifter, but you didn't expect that from that game, so I thought it was really cool. Anyway, that's my little
Sure.
piece.
Yeah.
I can eliminate the animation canceling from Hyper Light Drifter.
Yeah, let the record show that we did. Valda's Story did win with a
Yes.
different animation cancel
Yes, it did.
mechanic. So
Rewinding
now we've
time.
got rewinding time. I think rewinding time is
That's
a good
pretty big.
mechanic.
That's the
for
strong
what it-
contender.
But other games have
Yeah.
done it before.
Yeah, it's
However,
it works, but it's
I
You could
think
say that the Forza franchise has been using time rewinding as a mechanic.
That's not. So
Vroom,
within the
vroom. Oh, I crashed.
within the context of a narrative-driven game, similar to the Telltale games, I think that adding rewinding time to that, like in that specific instance, where you can kind of look at your choices and then adjust or go down one dialogue tree and rewind time, and now you've got new options. I think it actually opened up some design space that otherwise a time rewinding mechanic would not. However, I don't think it punches with some of these other games, so I'm fine with losing it.
okay.
I think it should still... It deserved to be on the list. PUBG, The Trials in Pyre, Seeing Hidden Realities in Senua, and the end of Doki Doki Literature Club. I'm fine with losing Seeing Hidden Realities in Hellblade.
Yeah, I don't think that hangs either.
Like, as
It's
part
powerful.
of the prettiness, I think it's good, but I don't think, like, the part where I was playing it was not the thing.
Yeah. And
Um,
also, again, like the actual aiming and targeting and attacking characters while you're in those situations is just not fun.
Yeah. So we've got PUBG, Pyre, Doki Doki Literature Club. I think I can... this is hard. So the end of Doki Doki Literature Club,
Okay.
when you're manipulating
wait,
files
Gino?
in your file system,
Sure, but also we have to mention, because I know that you told me that you didn't consider it. Doki Doki Literature Club has a hidden alternate reality game once you finish the game. And I spent literal hours trying to decipher the hidden messages and the bonus story hidden in the file system after finishing the game. And it is tough.
Is that good? Is that bad? What does that mean?
Okay, so do you want me to tell you what happens? So
no,
you
I
find
just
out
want
that-
to.
I think I've already told you, but there's like entire files that have been added to your game without your consent, and in those files are just batches of binary code in base 64 that you could translate into a base 64 binary translator, and you find out that Monica is still alive and is writing stories to you, reminding you that she's taking the code from the game to continue to exist on your computer.
That's pretty great. So, the trials, I like that it's like 3-on-3 basketball. I like that a lot.
Then
But-
I
Really
think
good
you're
when you did
misinterpreting
Kimbe
what I
someone else.
nominated. We shouldn't have combined them.
I like both of them. I like the part where sometimes your team members have to ascend to b-ball heaven, and I also like the part where you're playing 3-on-3 basketball with an orb, and the dunking makes you burn in flames. But, man, PUBG.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
It's
PUBG
the
like
funnest
it.
game.
No way. So like,
Yeah.
there's no way PUBG wins this. Absolutely
Yeah,
not.
I'm gonna
I
have to
mean,
vote-
I think everyone else votes PUBG.
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
going to
like
have to
PUBG
also vote
wins this.
PUBG, despite my...
I think PUBG wins this.
Yeah,
Wait,
looks like
whoa,
PUBG.
am I not even gonna have a chance?
No.
Is it
3
just
against 1, buddy.
3 against 1 PUBG?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
That
all
game's
right.
conceit is all of it.
Oh my god, this is
It's
a disaster.
the funnest game. Like I said, I watched a man play 9 hours of PUBG, and then once I was done watching him play PUBG, I
No
played
mark
2
box
hours
is
by
red yet.
myself.
Hang on. All right.
No,
Wait,
we're
I
marking
didn't mark
boxes
it.
red.
It's
Let,
due on its own.
no. Let me say something. First of
The
all,
spreadsheet knew.
so I think that we shouldn't have consolidated, because what you thought my category nomination was, you like touch on it barely at all. But I think so. For me, the mechanic that I wanted to highlight in Pyre was having to selectively delete your party members, which
No,
is
I-
some. Let me finish. So
okay.
in lots of games where you accrue a party, take any Final Fantasy game, take any RPG, you just keep stocking up bodies into your squad, and as a result, they get diluted. You have to like go more and more out of your way to learn about who these people are. Great examples like Sid and Vincent from Final Fantasy VII. They kind of get tossed into your party almost as afterthoughts. Sid is kind of main story required because you're going to end up flying at some point.
He is, in fact, main story required.
Yeah, but like you could just totally miss Vincent. Yuffie can just jump in whenever the fuck she wants. You could learn nothing about her. So you just keep adding bodies and bodies to your roster, and it dilutes them. This mechanic says you have bodies on the roster, and you're gonna have to delete them from your story. And by doing that, you selectively choose which stories you don't hear and which stories you do, and who's closer to you, and maybe the loss of you having to sacrifice one of your cool members because you want to keep these others. I think that was a really cool mechanic, and I haven't seen other games do stuff like that.
I agree. I just want to make clear, I understood what you nominated.
We got it.
All right.
PUBG is so
I also
like
agree.
the central
feel like
design of PUBG.
The central design
and
of
the
PUBG
loot.
is uninteresting. And it's
Well,
been
you're-
done in older games of you have a 30-on-30 battle royale of whatever.
But it's not 30 on 30.
Yeah, I know.
It's 100. It's a free for all. And
But other
it's a
games have done
bloodbath.
stuff like that.
No.
That's not.
No.
It's. I just
Not as
don't.
well.
I just. You're right. It did this thing well, but Pyre does something that's new and refreshing. And this is just we got more like server capacity so that we can have 100 free for all game. That was more of a technological advantage than a game being actually innovative. Pyre did something innovative and cool, and PUBG just said, "Hey, look what we can do now that we have technology that can support that."
let the record show, PUBG created a genre unto itself.
Yeah.
Its mechanic was so good, it has spawned
Clones
imitators.
on mobile phones, clones on Steam.
You're right.
Like now,
There
current
is-
games are having to
there's Fortnite.
insert this battle royale mechanic into their
Yes.
mainline franchises, like Call of Duty.
It's so good. So PUBG wins. Sorry, Pyre. Sorry, other games on that list. Sorry, Magic Pendle, the most of all.
An entire game's whole gimmick is the fact that they made a whole game out of a gimmick, out of a bonus mode. Like,
it's a really good gimmick.
The idea of a battle royale should just be a optional play feature in some other shooter game.
Okay.
Objection noted. PUBG wins.
God,
PUBG's PUBG.
Oh man, I haven't been so salty for a nomination loss in. This is probably the saltiest I've ever been. Jesus fuck.
Next up.
Hey, we all get one.
Next up, worst story.
PUBG.
It didn't even make the list. It didn't have us.
We have Mobius Final Fantasy, Oni, Final Fantasy X-2, Hotiful Boyfriend, and Jade Empire.
Hotiful Boyfriend's a good story, so
I want to
kick it off.
Hotiful Boyfriend for being actually good.
Yeah, Hotiful Boyfriend is good.
I don't think it's bad enough. Now, there are some bad endings in Hotiful Boyfriend, like poorly written, not like, oh, things turned out poorly for me, but it doesn't punch with some of these heavyweights.
I'm also want to cross out Oni because I don't think it tanks as hard as any of the other games. It has reasonable quality at some points.
It's just kind of dull. But
yeah, Oni's so uninteresting. It's not terrible or great.
Should we ask at this point how much do we want to penalize racism?
I think Jade Empire is a strong contender for worst story.
Jade Empire's up there.
Yeah.
How much do we want to penalize racism? Heavily.
And we can get rid of Mobius Final Fantasy because there's really no story. Oh, wait, no. It's now going to recanonize the canon for Final Fantasy X. It's going to rewrite the entire story for Final Fantasy X.
See, I was going to cross out Mobius Final Fantasy because it's such a nothing, but then I decided. Then you mentioned it was going to hurt Final Fantasy X's story even more, and now I want to uncross it out and somehow make it the worst story. But I don't think Mobius Final Fantasy deserves our score.
I don't think Mobius does enough damage, does more damage than Final Fantasy X-2 did.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X-2's on this list.
Yeah, so Mobius puts up a good front, but Final Fantasy X-2 is going to put in the most work for trashing up a good story.
Yeah. Then it really comes down to, if we're going to include Final Fantasy X-2, are we including the true ending to Final Fantasy X-2?
Of course we are. That's the worst part. So here's the question, really. Here's the central question. Is the true ending of Final Fantasy X-2 worse than racism?
Nope.
All right. I've played both these games. So I can also throw a vote into this fight. I'm going to say that you knew Final Fantasy X-2 was going to be a shit show 5 minutes in.
Okay, yep, you're right.
So you kind of know what you're signing up for. It's going to be a disaster piece, and you kind of have to just buckle in and go along for the ride. And if you can accept that, great. And it's actually not that awful, but the way Jade Empire just tramples on an entire culture is outstanding.
And that twist is bad.
The record show, it doesn't trample on one culture, it tramples on
multiple cultures.
Bunch of cultures.
It takes 4 different East Asian main central tenants and puts them in a blender and just pours them on the ground. It's hey, don't it puts out the don't slip sign, but you inevitably fall on your fucking face.
It also makes up a vaguely Asian sounding language, I wasn't close enough.
But Final Fantasy X-2, the true ending says, hey, remember the best thing about Final Fantasy X? What if we undid all of it? But you know, at the end of the day, racism is worse than ruining Final Fantasy X.
I would also object. I know I'm fine with this vote, but I want to say, in addition to Final Fantasy X-2 not being as bad, I feel like Jade Empire is bad without any other game existing, and Final Fantasy X-2 needs a good story to shit on in order for it to be a bad story.
And you have to consider, whatever. Final Fantasy X-2 was made by Square. They were made by Square. They are known for doing stupid stuff from time to time. The doctors and the main BioWare team wrote and made Jade Empire, and
on purpose.
They don't do bad things like this. They should have known better. They had the internet at their disposal to avoid all the fuck-ups in Jade Empire. It's Confucianism, traditionalism, Buddhism. Oh, it's all the same thing. It's all part of this
next
philosophy.
Worst story goes to Jade Empire. Go fuck yourself, Jade Empire.
Yeah.
And next up, we've got best twist.
This
I guess
looks bad.
Jade Empire, you win the Trenchy. So, best twist, we've got your teacher is the bad guy from Jade Empire. Hello again, Jade Empire, my old friend. The face in the side of the world will vomit mud and cause the apocalypse. Whoppo.
All right.
You can change the past, and your teacher is a jerk. Life is strange. You were a dream all along. Final Fantasy X. All the endings. The Stanley Parable. The Gun. Magic Pendule. The Quest for Color. Igor isn't Igor. Persona 5. There isn't enough salvation for everyone. Pyre. Your Tokyo job.
Job.
What? Job. Yes, your Tokyo Job. The world ends with you.
What?
Ray made her own hell. Detention. Oko-san is the one true pudding, and Bad Boys Love Ending. Hatoful boyfriend.
Okay.
It was all in your head, but like more than you thought. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. Monica loves you, and I really mean you. I'm talking to you, Peter. Doki Doki Literature Club.
It's a good twist.
And the true ending, Final Fantasy X-2. This is a tough category.
We got a lot of bullshit, so let's just go through the easy ones first.
Let's get rid of Jade Empire. I mean,
Yep.
we're just finishing all over
Please.
that.
Yep.
Please.
Fuck you, Jade Empire.
I think we got to get rid of Weppo too. It's cool. It's not. It doesn't hit as hard as any of these others right now.
It does come out
That's
of
true.
nowhere, though. Like,
Yeah, it comes out of
it
fucking
comes out of
nowhere. I
Okay.
think we
What
can
a
get-
twist.
I think we can get rid of
How about
Stanley Parable.
Magic Pingle.
Yes.
Magic
Because-
Pingle.
No, Magic
No.
Pingle is staying.
Imagine you just get away from Magic Pendule.
Okay, then the world ends with you, please.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's gone. It's all in your head, but, like, more than you thought. Like, great
Yeah.
description. But
Get rid of the true ending of Final Fantasy X too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Um,
We knew that twist was coming.
what
and
about?
it sucks.
So like I get like so when in the Doki Doki twist where they like say your real name,
Yes.
that's cool. But how much else in the game does it like do that?
I mean, the game is in love with you.
Yeah.
It's a
game
hell of a
explodes.
twist.
Like, it's good.
At the first playthrough, you think it's a dating sim, and then by the second playthrough, the game is killing off other characters so that it can be alone with you. And then you can't play anymore. It will just keep talking to you and saying how much it loves you, and it uses your name.
Now
That's a great twist.
that's cool. Does it follow along the same kind of like mechanical gimmick as some of the stuff in what is it? Like Undertale's post-ending choices, or maybe even like a throwback to like a Metal Gear Solid 2 where they like put the controller on the ground. Oh, it vibrates. Change it to the
you have
port.
to edit.
Yeah,
you have to edit
delete
files to
Monica's
fix the
character
game.
file from the actual executable and then find the correct combinations in order to be able to progress to the next story moment.
Yeah. So that's really cool. I just don't know if I call that a story twist with air quotes.
I mean,
It
the
completely
twist is
changes the genre of the game from
it goes from a dating sim to a horror game.
Yeah. So that.
That's a hell of a
Like, I
twist.
think
Yeah,
we
but
got
would you
other
call,
easier
like-
ones to deal with first?
Yeah,
I think.
okay.
Yeah,
Like
let's get rid of Oko-san.
Let's
You
look.
guys
I mean,
can
it's
play
cool,
Bad Boys
but-
Love Ending, but if Hatoful Boyfriend needs to die for the sins of Doki Doki Literature Club, then I will let it go.
I want to take out
Um,
Igor isn't Igor because you were actually led up to that the entire game as you fulfilled.
Well, then at the same time, you could say the same about Life is Strange and that the teacher is a jerk
Yeah.
from the
Yeah, I
first
agree.
monologue
That
in the
one,
beginning
too.
of the
Yeah, I
game.
wanted to get rid
Well-
of that too. Anyway,
Could I if I changed Life is Strange to you can save Chloe or the town, would that
I don't think
keep
so.
it around?
I think
It'd be
you
better if
ultimately
that's
knew it was going to boil to a massive decision at
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah.
a much of a twist. You're not like what?
Yeah, the twist isn't the thing there.
Mhm.
You were a dream all along. That's a terrible twist.
that's
Yeah,
always a twist.
that's a bad
never a
twist.
But
So
it's
let's get rid of
okay, fine.
it. Sucks.
Gino, are you really going to keep repping Magic Pengle
I will
till
Yes.
die
the day
for
you
that.
die?
I think that's the winner.
No, okay.
Or it's
I
very
think,
close to the
I
winner.
think Magic Pendule is going to get to the final 3, but it's going to lose to something better.
I
I don't know
disagree.
if there is anything better.
Okay, so Pyre, this comes out pretty like.
No, this comes out
not being
probably halfway through the game. You get through like 2 or 3 rights before you learn this out of your 8 party members that leave. So you're almost halfway through the game before you learn that you're going to have to make even harder choices. Because up until that point, you think, oh, great, like I just keep winning and then all my friends get to go to fire basketball heaven. But then you learn that that's not true. And that twist carried emotional weight. So if Pyre doesn't win, I'm not going to be upset, but it's going to go further in the bracket than
there's only 4 other games, so I think that Pyre of the existing twists, I think, is not as strong.
I haven't played Detention or Doki Doki. So those are I can't vote against those games.
Tell you what, let me perform a community service and let me talk Gino down from the ledge that is Magic Pendulum.
How dare you?
I know, Gino. I'm sorry to turn on you like this. I love it. This might be my favorite moment from any game we've played all year. When he pulls that gun out, and it's just like at no point was there any single that guns exist in this world, and then he basically shoots a child. It's incredible.
Just murders her.
It's incredible. Everybody in the world should play. If anybody asks why games are art, show them Magic Pendulum. But it doesn't change the story in any way. It doesn't shift your perspective of things that came before it or after it. It's just an incredible moment that
they don't talk about it again.
I know. It lives and dies in beautiful splendor, but it doesn't change the story. I don't think we can really call it best twist.
She gets shot, and then the game goes on like she wasn't shot.
Gino, I know.
It's amazing.
But it's not a twist.
It is a twist.
You first want to ice a 12-year-old. You learn how to do it in Magic.
So let me just put this out there for you. I think the winner is Doki Doki Literature Club.
Okay.
I don't care who loses to Doki Doki Literature Club all that much. I'm not that invested in it. Except if the gun is not going to win, then Doki Doki wins.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
All right, yeah.
Let's do it.
Because, God, that moment when he pulls out that fucking gun.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I didn't play Doki Doki, but I can really appreciate when a game makes you change the way you think about what the game is. And from hearing your description, I'm okay with letting that go, though I do want to reiterate the emotional weight that I had when I learned that I wasn't going to get everybody out in Pyre.
Yes, that is fair. So the winner is the twist when the dating sim becomes a horror game of Doki Doki Literature Club. And now it's time for Game of the Year 2017. This is a tough one. Tough year.
Calendar year game.
This is a great year.
So we played a lot of games that came out this year, and they included Persona 5, Dead Cells, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Pyre, Detention, Slime Rancher, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, and Doki Doki Literature Club. By Slime Rancher.
Yep. By Dead
Cells.
By Dead Cells. The adults are talking.
Hellblade, I think we can drop that one next. Good.
That's fair.
Not as good.
Persona 5 doesn't make its ending.
I think Persona 5's got to go. It was a huge blockbuster. It was a blockbuster AAA hit. I didn't think it's the best game.
4, though. I mean,
it wasn't. That's the thing is I love Persona 4 so much, and it just didn't move me.
It didn't live up
the same way. So we got PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Pyre, Detention, and Doki Doki Literature Club.
I feel like this has to come down to PUBG versus Pyre.
No, I don't agree. Doki Doki's going to knock out
Doki versus
right
Unknown.
Now.
Yeah.
I would say Detention would knock out Doki Doki, but I don't think anyone else would follow me along with that.
I don't think so.
I mean, just look at the internet and how it has memified Doki Doki Literature Club.
I refuse to give the internet the authority to tell me anything.
Win every single year.
And we don't want that, right? We don't want that?
That's the last thing we want.
Okay. So, I really feel strongly about Detention. I think it's probably one of the most cohesive games I've ever played. It takes a lot of the lessons that horror games throughout the years have taught. Like, it takes a Silent Hill story and it makes it actually emotionally resonant instead of being like weird occult bullshit, which I think is, it takes the conceit that would have been filled by occult bullshit and instead makes it emotionally resonant and historically and culturally rooted. And I think that in doing that, it elevates itself to kind of the pinnacle of storytelling within horror games. Not necessarily the most horrifying, but it is one of the best told stories that I've ever played. So I have a hard time cutting it I love PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It's a really fun game. But for me, story generally comes first and storytelling comes first. That's just where I am as a person. And so I have a hard time cutting it for, like, Doki Doki.
You can cut out Doki Doki if you're breaking it down to story, because I'm on the complete opposite side of the spectrum to you, Gino. I value gameplay over story. And so my vote is still PlayerUnknown's Battleground.
Yeah,
I would vote out PUBG because I think it has no story.
I would vote
Tetris
out
doesn't
Doki
have any
Doki.
story, and it's one of the greatest games ever created.
Doki Doki, I don't think we can pick. The first half is just bad. Like, I understand that the first half sets up everything that comes after, and for that reason it's necessary, but it's not fun.
All right, so Doki Doki's out. Can we make it Pyre versus Detention?
No, I'd pick PUBG over Pyre.
Yeah, I think I love Pyre, but I think it's Detention versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for me.
I think Pyre's going to be final two.
Does anyone else think that?
I think
it's PlayerUnknown's with Detention.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, Pyre. I really enjoyed Pyre a whole lot. Like,
I don't know what Pyre doesn't do. Like what is Pyre missing that makes it not the best game on this list?
Frankly, I didn't really like it all that much, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have even taken it as far as it went.
For me, it's just that I think Detention tells a more interesting, like, the story resonated with me more, and I think that it just, some of the emotions it plays with and some of the historical context just does so much for it. And there were moments in Pyre where, I don't know if they cut it a little shorter, I would have liked it more. But there were moments when I just felt like I was playing to see the next event and not necessarily emotionally engaged with what was happening in front of me.
And so for me personally, I'm sorry, you can go.
If Pyre is off this list, then I'm throwing every vote I have at not a shooter game with no story.
That's fine.
Because there's no fucking way that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds wins any game of the year in a podcast where we talk about, like, the cultural relevance of games and how they handle social concepts and, like, there's no way.
So, okay, I don't dismiss PUBG for that reason, but let me make an argument why PUBG shouldn't win. That game, as great of a concept as it is, we've talked about how great the conceit, the plane, the survival, it is one of the tensest experience. It's one of the most unique games that I've played in a very long time. But that game's fucking broken.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Gino.
In a lot of ways. Like, there's a bunch... I've lost games where 2 circles drew in and I didn't know which one was the real one. I've lost games because I couldn't jump onto something because it hadn't spawned in. I've played games where buildings didn't spawn. I've played games where I could be seen because the grass didn't render far enough away so someone with a scope could see me because the grass didn't render for them, but I did. There's a whole bunch of just weird jank, and when this game comes completely together, maybe it will, deal with all those things. But right as it stands right now, that game crashes for me in spots. Like, it will just crash for no good reason. Sometimes there's no sound.
Gino, I'll be honest. You've swayed me, and as an added bonus, I get to penalize the live stream community. Not the live. Damn it! The YouTube community or wherever the hell it is. Who's that stupid guy with the mustache?
Is that Dr. Disrespect?
If I get to penalize Dr. Disrespect, I'm happy. Let's go with Detention.
Wait, let me just say one thing, because
That's fair.
Billy got to say all his things when his candidates
fine.
got eliminated.
No,
I'm not.
ZP, say
But-
your thing.
Go ahead.
But PUBG is probably, without a doubt, on this list, the most important game on this list as it stands. The reason why I didn't vote for Pyre is kind of a topic you guys talked about on your podcast. I don't like the way that Supergiant Games tells their story. I personally have always disliked how Supergiant Game tells their story. And as a result, I've never immersed myself in the way that they tell their story. But PUBG has changed. Do you guys realize that the industry is now like totally cognizant and aware of the Chinese and South Korean markets as massive moneymakers, and now that they're going to put in development tools and resources into creating entire studios in China and catering to an audience that has since its creation completely ignored that entire audience. And PUBG has doubled the size of its audience by finally breaking that glass wall into making video games not just a form of art, but just a form of expression and just accessible to audiences that haven't had these experiences.
PUBG is probably the most important game that came out this year in terms of what it did. Like, if you look at the Steam currently playing charts, it's PUBG by a lot.
And it's now reaching, if you reach it, go in a little deeper, it's now anywhere between 55 to 60% Chinese, South Korean, and Japanese.
And that never happens.
And that never happens. So
it's intense.
Steam and the video games that we enjoy are reaching audiences that have never played retail releases of games ever. It's either piracy or mobile games.
And they actually bought PUBG.
They bought this game and are supporting it financially. And the entire industry will change as a result of PUBG.
In that respect, ZP, I 100% support your claim. I think PUBG has changed the gaming world. It has redefined a genre. It has included a demographic that has been neglected. It has done groundbreaking work. But if we're only looking at the gameplay experience, what's the best game to play? If we're going to talk about most game that changed the world, PUBG probably is the winner here. But just the best gameplay experience in a vacuum, it's hard to say it like that. Like gameplay experience in a vacuum, sure, PUBG's fun, Battle Royale's fun, but I haven't even played Detention, but I'm not going to give best game of the year to a game with no soundtrack. Its art is not impressive. It has no story. It's only a fighting mechanic.
Okay.
And I'm not going to penalize a game for being simplistic, but Detention's so good. It's not like it's fighting against a game that's, if it was fighting against Slime Rancher, yes, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. If it was fighting against Persona 5 even, Persona 5 is a great game. It's like 80 hours, and I would have given it to PUBG. But Detention is 2.5, 3 hours. It is tight, and it tells an amazing story really efficiently. And that's something that I prize over just about anything, because it respects your time, and it tells its story in a way that very few games have, in a genre that has the potential to tell stories very compellingly, but often doesn't.
So I'm going to add something else on the back of your PlayerUnknown's, sort of their consolation prize.
Well,
you're not going to.
Should we move on to the next category? Because I feel like we all agree on the choice here, and we've made it. And more reasons why PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds isn't winning. I think we got. Is it okay, Billy, or did you want to?
I really want to make this small point because there's a really good analogy here. So you said something about not wanting to penalize a game for being simplistic. I don't think PlayerUnknown's falls into that category of protection, because a game can be simple but still have robust pieces there that aren't part of its central gameplay. And the example that comes to mind is Rocket League, which is also a really popular game, and it's got a simple design concept, but it's got great graphics and art, and it's got good music. Like, it's got things that PlayerUnknown's Battleground doesn't have. They're both a simple concept that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds didn't put those cool things in where it might have been able to. Maybe the graphics it couldn't, because it has to be a big world that's all generated instantly. That might be a programming nightmare that I'm unaware of, but it could have at least put some other atmospheric components, and it just didn't. It said, here's our gimmick, we're going to just ride the whole game on this.
Well, it's still in early access, so it will probably eventually get there, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get back to it. So it is now time for a little fun before the storm.
Yeah, that was a big serious discussion. Now let's get weird.
We've got our individual awards. Mm-hmm. So first up, we've got Billy's Grindfather Award.
Oh man,
take the floor. The Grindfather himself.
Grindfather, go over the category nominees.
Actually, wait, is it okay if I go like second? I kind of want to take a break.
Okay. I can go first.
A vocal break. I need to get some water.
Sure.
That's fine. I can take it first because I think I know the winner. Welcome to Gino's Platypus Award for a game that should not be. This is a category for a game that, the ability to come out in the first place is amazing. The fact that it continues to survive and thrive is extra impressive. Like the stately platypus, it is a thing that when you look at it, you go, how did that survive this long? Who allowed that to happen? And wait, it's an apex predator? Something, it's not only existing, but
it's really an apex predator.
It has a
I don't think anything can eat it because it's poisonous.
It does.
So not only is it still alive, but it continues to survive. Wow, that's incredible. And so this category in the past has been won by Pokemon Snap. Mm-hmm. This year, the nominees are Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color, Doki Doki Literature Club, The World Ends With You, Wuppo, Hotiful Boyfriend, and Final Fantasy X-2. So I'm going to go ahead and first eliminate Final Fantasy X-2 because fuck that game. Though it is amazing that game was able to exist in such a slapdash fashion, but I feel like it is explained by a company's just desperation. And you can understand that as a cash grab, how that was allowed to be. I'm going to get rid of The World Ends With You because that game is of a high quality. The thing that surprised me about it was that a DS game was given that kind of budget and that kind of time and attention. But the execution of the game I didn't think was weird in any particular way. Next, I'm going to get rid of Hotiful Boyfriend because ultimately that was just a dating sim with a very weird conceit. So I can understand why that came to be. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of Wuppo. That is a platypus game right there. That game, I guess it's between that and Doki Doki Literature Club, which one goes next. But Wuppo, that is a platypus of a game. That game starts out and you think it's some sort of weird dual-stick shooter, and by the end of it, you're in the center of the earth fighting a face that vomits mud. And that game, man, it's a fever dream. It goes some places, as we've said multiple times. It's got like a weird pseudo-communist element. It's got a theme park that you can wait in the lines of. You can get a hat that gives you an arm, and that's a game changer. It's got a whole lot of weird stuff. There's a movie theater in that game. You can go to multiple movie theaters. That game's super weird, and God, it's beautiful. Next up, Doki Doki Literature Club. Sorry, but you don't win. That is another game that,
it's a platypus.
Damn, man. If you told me that the scariest game of the year was going to be a dating sim that ultimately just scares the shit out of you, I wouldn't have believed you. In fact, when ZP told me, hey, you need to play this game, it's scary as hell, I was like, whatever, sure. And when I started playing, I'm like, whatever. And then it gave me nightmares. So that is a hell of a game.
Sorry.
But the winner is Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color.
As it should be.
Because as much as Doki Doki Literature Club was a horror game hiding within a dating sim, Magic Pendule: The Quest for Color is an existential nightmare. Or I should say several twists, several very gripping, very dramatic twists hiding within a happy-go-lucky drawing game. Let's just highlight some of the moments that happen within this game that seems to be for children and seems to be mostly about drawing fun monsters. A boy who is also some sort of doodle who has a soul rips the color out of a living human being and causes him to flatten in a forced choke style. It's like a Darth Vader choking a man to death. Some kids get kicked off of their land by government agents and have to earn the money to win their land back. They then enter an underground fighting arena where their friend who can steal the color out of living beings wins a battle, and then they are raided by the government and have to run away with their money. You then put down several failed abomination monstrosities who all wander the halls and tell you that they are the Doodle King and then melt before your eyes. And then finally, a man produces a gun and shoots a child. And then you fight in a colorless world.
It doesn't sound funny when you describe it like that, and we keep laughing, but it's super funny when you watch the actual game.
Yeah, it's super funny. This is a game about drawing fun doodles and fighting other doodles, and by the end of the game, a child is shot with a gun, and you barely understand what's happening. So, Magic Pendulum: The Quest for Color, you are a true platypus, and you are the winner of the Platypus Award for games that should not be. Right. Next up, the Grindfather. Billy's Grindfather Award.
Is he ready?
I am back. Yes, I am ready to give this award. So, the essence of the Grindfather Award. The game that wins the Grindfather Award should be that game that draws out more and more hours from its player in the hope of that player gaining some kind of trivial bullshit edge. Something that honestly just you could do just fine in this game without having to do this. Why spend 80 hours doing this mindless like you could just be doing other things with your time. Oh no, I'm going to get a marginal benefit instead. That's the essence of the Grindfather.
I could be learning a language or a skill, but instead my strength is +5.
So last year's winner was Fury. And it came down to the final two, Dark Souls and Fury. I look back on previous years and I realize the Grindfather Award has kind of evolved for me a little bit. It's not so much about putting in mindless hours to get a marginal gain. It's about like what levels of efficiency am I willing to sink to? So here's the candidates for this year's Grindfather Award. We've got first candidate, Hyper Light Drifter. Next candidate, Final Fantasy X. Then we've got Dust and Elysian Tale, Persona 5, and Dead Cells. So first, I'm going to just lovingly get rid of Dust and Elysian Tale and Dead Cells. I think those two games offer me fantastic grind experiences. I spent probably a good couple hours in Dust and Elysian Tale just running back and forth through levels that regenerated enemies and filling the screen full of hot bullshit. What made this a really strong contender actually was that there was like a combo system where if you kept your chain going, you got like exponentially higher EXP and money. So that made it hard to cut first, but these other games have just a significant new layer of bullshit. So Dust and Elysian Tale goes. Dead Cells is ultimately a roguelite. Yeah, it's a grind, but that's what the whole game is anyway. So I'm not really going to reward a game for just building itself as a grind. You're not going to get marginal benefit. Sorry, I just said it like this. It's not marginal if you're supposed to do it. Right? So that's why Dead Cells is going to get taken off this list. And now we got Hyper Light Drifter, Final Fantasy X, and Persona 5. So I love Hyper Light Drifter, and I'd love to give it any award in this category. I mean, I want it to be in every single category so it can potentially win. I don't think it's going to win the Grindfather Award, and here's why. In Hyper Light Drifter, yeah, you have to spend a lot of time, one, perfecting combat, which is why Fury won its award last year, was because I put so many hours into perfecting that combat system. You could have won Fury, for example, just by mashing your face against controls, except for maybe one fight where you had to be good at countering. But I spent so much time just learning everything about Fury's fight system. That was an example of me putting in tons of hours for like a small efficiency game. In Hyper Light Drifter, I'm talking about all of the little gold like nuggets you can find throughout the world and all the keys you can find. What you have to do to achieve this is combing through the entire landscape and honestly just kind of mashing your face against surfaces to see what you can actually follow through because there's an invisible tunnel there. Now, I love
that's
that.
the grindfatheriest.
That is that's about as grindfathery as it gets. Is like mashing your face into every possible pixel of the game. And you know what started that all off for me way back in the day? The original Legend of Zelda game. You know, I bombed every single wall in that whole game just because I wanted to see what might have been behind there. So it has nostalgic value, but the fact that actually rewarded me with like more story and more parts of the game that were actually good. Again, it wasn't me dumping hours into something that I didn't get rewarded for. It was me dumping it was me dumping hours into something that I was wanting the whole time.
There was too much reward. There was that was too valuable.
Yeah, there was honestly too much return on investment. So now we're down to 2. We're down to Final Fantasy X and Persona 5. Now, here's why Final Fantasy X makes it on this list. I put hours into the sphere grid. I grinded up as many spheres and levels as I possibly could because I just wanted all my characters to be able to do everything.
How many celestial weapons have you gotten?
Is there any that I didn't?
Okay. Got it.
I mean, I think I had every single character in my roster. Oh, sorry, I can't say every single character. Of like the 5 that I used, or maybe 4 or 5 that I used commonly, or that were like my main squad, they all finished at least 2 entire classes. At least. And the amount of hours you got to put into that is ridiculous. And here's what makes it even better. If you want to backtrack on the sphere grid, you have to pay more spheres to back up. You can't travel to a new part of the sphere grid without spending the currency that you would to unlock new skills just by moving your cursor somewhere else. Oh God, it's so good. The marginal benefit is so unreal.
It's so unreasonable.
But because you have teleportation spheres, it comes back into the world of logic and reason again. So, let's talk about Persona 5 and which one of these 2 games wins. Persona 5 has an unparalleled game of efficiency at play. In Persona 5, this game is all about using what little time you have to its absolute benefit. And the 2 times where you get a seemingly unlimited amount of time are in Mementos and in the palaces. In theory, you have as much time as you have resources to keep going through the Mementos and the palaces. Once you unlock the SP adhesives by talking to the doctor, those resources become nigh unlimited. And you can spend as much time as you want in the palaces and specifically in Mementos to generate an infinite stream of experience points and money. That's about as grindfather as it gets. If you have a way to just dump hours and hours and hours into a repeatable loop that gets you nearly infinite experience and money, that is...
But for no gain.
There wasn't no gain. The gain just dropped off really hard. Once I was 20 levels ahead of where most people were in the game, and they actually told you that. Like in the loading screen, if you logged into the Thieves Guild, it would say, here's your level, and here's the average level of this part of the game. Once I was like 15 levels above like the world average, I was like, you know what? I could probably pump the brakes on Mementos a little bit. But no, I didn't, because there was still money to be made. And you could actually spend money on real shit in this game. So there was value there. I bought almost every single gift for every single person in the first 2 months of the game. It was amazing. So between the absolute grindy horseshit of Final Fantasy X and the optimal efficiency use of time in Persona 5, the winner's going to be Persona 5. I put probably 40, I kid you not, 40 hours in Mementos just getting money and EXP for free. It was great.
That's a nightmare, and the Grindfather Award goes to Persona 5. Next up, we have the John Paul Sartre Memorial Award for a game that best expresses the ultimate futility of the human condition. That is Pete's original award.
Yep, a deep name for a deep award. So this field's pretty narrow this year. Actually, has 4 contenders. So I added a special subcategory I'll get to in a second. But our 4 contenders for the Memorial Award for the game that best expresses the futility of the human condition are Wuppo, for all the craziness Gino described. You think your life's going on, about how you expect, and then boom, wall monster vomiting mud all over your life. Next, for Life is Strange, for the answer that no matter what decisions you make in life, eventually shit's going to go awry. The Stanley Parable, for what it expresses about the position of the worker in the modern world. And Circa Infinity, for the way you're just sort of trapped in this sort of infinite series of circles, trying to get closer and closer to a love that ultimately you can never reach. So this is really a two-person battle, right? As much as I love Wuppo and the Stanley Parable, they don't really belong here. So this becomes Life is Strange and Circa Infinity, both strong contenders. But I think ultimately I'm going to have to go with Life is Strange because the decisions are momentous and minor, but no matter what, it ultimately shows you really can't make the right decision because even more scarily, there is no right decision. But we now have our bonus subcategory, the Anthropocene Award for a game that most horrifyingly portrays a problem with modernity. It's this sort of...
What does Anthropocene mean?
So it's the idea that we've entered a time of a point in geological history where humans are the sort of the main actors. So if you looked at sort of geological strata, you could note, okay, here's the point where humans started fucking everything up. Right? So basically after the Industrial Revolution, let's say. So we had a lot of games that introduced a problem that's uniquely associated with the modern human condition, and they all did so in a horrifying way. So I'm actually going to open this one up to votes. I don't want you to tell me, the three of you, why you picked a thing, because I don't care what your opinions are in this case. Just tell me what thing you picked, and I will list them off now. So we have Magic Pendule, The Quest for Color, and the way it horrifically expresses the problems with gun violence. We have the Stanley Parable's remarks on capitalism's oppression of the working class. Hateful Boyfriend, for the way it displays the imminent extinction of humanity and how the survivors will eventually have to mate with pigeons in order to continue the race. The World Ends With You's shallow consumerism, where pretty much all you have to do is buy pins and follow fashion trends. Jade Empire for the lazy racism that permeates every aspect of the game and its creation. Always Sometimes Monsters, also capitalism. Not a fan of it. Doki Doki Literature Club for the problems it expresses of AI and how it's going to love us and then kill us. And Final Fantasy X2, also for its rampant materialism and hatred of capitalism. So, Field, Gino, which one do you pick?
Oh, fuck.
I know, it's tough.
For me, it's between Magic Pendule and gun violence and The World Ends With You and its rampant and shallow consumerism, and I think I have to go with The World Ends With You.
Okay, one vote for World Ends With You. Billy, what do you got?
I am going to vote for Doki Doki Literature Club because I have been called an AI racist on this show before.
What do you think? We've gone over this. I don't care what your opinions are, but you are an AI racist.
Yeah.
ZP, your choice.
I would probably go with Hateful Boyfriend and the Extinction of Humanity because I am afraid of birds, and I do not want to mate with birds.
No, you know what the other problem with birds is? They only have one hole, so they're gross.
Yeah, cloacas.
Yep.
I've heard.
So, various choices. If I had just been picking on my own, I might have went Stanley Parable, but I will follow along with Gino and pick The World Ends With You and the crazy consumerism and following of fashion trends that eventually destroys that society. So, that is my contribution to the Trenchies for this year.
Yeah, I gotta say, with most games, when they show some sort of, trend that is ultimately frivolous, that is, somewhat problematic, and they're making a critique, through gameplay they reinforce that you should not follow that trend.
Oh no, not here.
The World Ends With You says the best way to play is to just become a shameless consumerist.
Not only are you more effective, you are a better person for following the trends. It's really incredible.
Yes. So, next up we have ZP's Help I'm Trapped in Sysiphean Torment Award.
Yeah, so this is a category for the game that most caused me to question my humanity as well as humanity's position in the world. This is the game that I most regretted playing as either a direct result of listening to your podcast or I rope-a-doped Gino into playing as for the purposes of a podcast. So the nominees are Mobius Final Fantasy, the free-to-play model, and everything it has wrought. Final Fantasy X-2, we've said enough. Jade Empire for everything that is just the the tire fire that is its sense of cultural appropriateness, cultural appropriation. Hateful Boyfriend for shooting to change the industry as wildly powerful as it was, and missing spectacularly and causing its developer to be stuck in a catch-22. And then finally, Always Sometimes Monsters for just being a bad thing. This is, for me, at least a tough category, because all of these games I felt offended me to a certain degree. I think the game that offended me the least or caused me to feel bad the least would oddly enough be Hateful Boyfriend. I certainly feel sorry for the developer in this regard, but at no point did I feel like, oh my God, I need to stop playing Hateful Boyfriend. I just feel bad. I feel
that game
bad.
The developer is in Sysiphean Torment. You, as the player, are not.
I'm not in the Sysiphean.
Important distinction in this case.
I mean, there is a world where you could have just gotten all positive utility from playing Hateful Boyfriend.
Absolutely.
You didn't need to know about their suffering.
Yeah, it's my fault for doing research into like Hatomoa and his life experiences. I don't think that, even though I think the game offended me in a way that I was not prepared for, Always Sometimes Monsters would not be the Sysiphean Torment, because it's also a short game, and even though I find what it attempts in its story to be deeply upsetting and just downright dysfunctional, it's not. We've got some big fish to fry coming up.
The hurt ends fast. You can just kind of rip the Band-Aid.
Yeah, you're right. It's a short game, so the hurt ends fast.
I did forget that in that game you can
motivate
mess
someone
with the
to commit
dude's
suicide.
brakes.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and you can also mess with the dude's brakes and have him die in front of all of his children.
Yep.
That should have been in Best Twist. Whoops.
That's a good point too. And the ultimate, the upshot is, whatever person you end up marrying should fix your life completely, which is a terrible relationship message.
Yep.
And as much as we have joked and played around with Final Fantasy X-2, and we've talked about this on the final edition of the Final Fantasy X-2 podcast, if the whole point of Final Fantasy X-2 was to have Square Enix make a boatload of cash after trying to make a movie and failing spectacularly, and helping them out through their darkest period in their corporate history, and all of the employees of Square and the Final Fantasy franchise remain intact, it's the MMR vaccine that company needed. One and done. Now we're down to Jade Empire and Mobius Final Fantasy. And boy, are these two games just the worst thing in human creation. But one of these games is, as we've said before, is not like the other. The silver lining to Jade Empire is the fact that BioWare learned from their experiences. I mean, the gameplay concepts and ideas of Jade Empire went into their production behind Mass Effect. And Mass Effect manages to create this multicultural and multidimensional, multifaceted world. And it's great. It's great. So Jade Empire, I feel, is disqualified because they learned. They learned every possible lesson from Jade Empire. And what I'm left with is Mobius Final Fantasy. And the reason why I'm left with Mobius Final Fantasy and how it is the victor of the I'm trapped in a Sysiphean torment, I want to just talk about this. Square Enix closed down IO Entertainment because they no longer valued the single-player experience in their corporate document to their investors. In the same goddamn corporate document, they announced that they were planning on making $900 million on Mobius Final Fantasy and Brave Exvius, the other mobile game, and that this was the direction they're going to take the entire company. So think about that. A development studio with the back catalog and the brilliant minds and just the life experiences you could only dream of having in that studio is going to become a free-to-play mobile game factory. And that's the direction they're going to take the entire company to make over $1 billion. And it's not even a good game.
So, Pete and Billy, you both didn't play Mobius Final Fantasy. ZP inflicted this upon me. There's an autoplay button in this game.
There is an autoplay button.
Like, literally?
You can hit a button, and then... So, I played this game while watching Netflix for like 2 or 3 hours. I hit the autoplay button, and then I occasionally had to get up and, like, click OK. Occasionally. But that was my entire experience with the game.
And the game is better about playing itself than you will ever be if you take live control over the game.
Yes.
It's more
It's a
efficient.
nightmare.
It always makes the correct elemental combinations, and the battles go way faster. And it's a card battle system with blind packs. So it takes the worst lessons from Magic the Gathering and makes it a part of the entire game.
So, the winner is...
Gino once said that this was the worst game he had ever played his entire life.
I stand by that. Mobius Final Fantasy, you are the winner of ZP's Help I'm Trapped in Sysiphean Torment Award. Congratulations. And now, without further ado...
Our grand finale?
Our grand... Game of our year 2017. The nominees are every game we've played this year, which include Jade Empire, Wuppo, Hyperlight Drifter, Life is Strange, Mobius Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy X, Oni, Dust and Elysian Tale, The Stanley Parable, Always Sometimes Monsters, Mario Sunshine, Magic Pendule The Quest for Color, Circa Infinity, Persona 5, Dead Cells, Final Fantasy X-2, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Sunless Sea, Pyre, The World Ends With You, Detention, Slime Rancher, Hotiful Boyfriend, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, The Magic School Bus Explores the Ocean, Doki Doki Literature Club, and The Binding of Isaac.
All right, can we...
So, let's get to cutting.
Hey, can I propose something? Can we just say what should stay on the list and cut everything else? Because I have like a tight group of what I would put in the list, and maybe if you guys have a tight group of what you would put on the list, we can just do this the reverse way.
That'll be way faster. So, Billy, which ones do you want to keep on the list?
I want to keep Life is Strange, Persona 5, Pyre, and Hyperlight Drifter.
Life is Strange. Let me just fill these with a color.
Yeah, like
Life
green
is
or
Strange,
something. Yeah. Life is Strange,
Persona
5, Pyre, and Hyperlight Drifter.
Those are the ones you definitely want to keep.
Yeah, I don't see anything else that like I'm dying to keep. Maybe FF10, but like somebody else might pick that. So.
Okay, Pete, which ones are you that have not been highlighted already?
I think
anything.
The only one I would want to add that hasn't been highlighted is Detention.
I agree. ZP?
I would ask to add Final Fantasy X and Doki Doki.
Okay.
Oh, no, wait, PUBG.
And PUBG, okay. PUBG and...
Doki Doki.
Doki Doki. And I'm just going to add Magic Pendule, The Quest for Color.
God damn it.
I'm fine with this addition. It can make the first round of cuts.
And let me...
You're right, we need an easy cut for the first round.
Let me just make sure that nothing else jumps to mind.
So Jade Empire can go? Yeah?
Yep, so buy Jade Empire.
Buy Wuppo?
Buy Wuppo. Sorry,
super
Wuppo.
Cute, super fun, not game of our year. Mobius Final Fantasy is a joke.
Buy Mobius.
Buy Oni.
Buy Oni. Buy Dust and Elysian Tale.
Buy Stanley Parable. You are always monsters.
That was terrible.
Mario Sunshine, I love you so much, but you don't belong here. Circa Infinity was barely even a game. Dead Cells.
Buy Dead Cells.
Well, I mean, Dead Cells almost could have been green, but like it's not going to beat any of my other picks. So.
And it's not quite done yet.
Go to Hell. Final Fantasy X-2.
Sunless Sea. You were weird.
Yeah, nothing good.
Buy Sunless Sea. Buy The World Ends With You. Goodbye Slime Rancher. Goodbye Hotiful Boyfriend. Goodbye Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. I'm sorry, you were a good game, but I'm sorry. Goodbye Magic School Bus Explores the Ocean. You changed the course of my life, but you do not win this award. And goodbye, The Binding of Isaac.
And now goodbye to Magic Pendulum. Can we just go ahead and...
I'll allow it.
That?
I will say that Magic Pendulum won't win the game of our year.
It won't win the game of our year,
but it made the first round of cuts.
Yep. What a great game. What a great game. So... Now it's fight time. We've got Hyper Light Drifter, Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, Persona 5, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, Pyre, Detention, and Doki Doki Literature Club.
I feel like we've mentioned it before, but because Persona 5 doesn't land its ending, that critically impairs its ability to continue on.
I will agree. That's probably going to be a hard penalty for Persona, but I'll add as another reason why I think it's so fucking failed at Mementos being a thing that any part of this game that is good is punctuated by an absolute torture fest, which I loved and exploited, but for everybody else who's not a Grindfather, probably hated that part of the game.
It is 40 hours too long.
Yeah.
That's so much time.
But let's be honest, Persona 4 was maybe slightly shorter, but deeply affecting in a way that Persona 5 wasn't.
It was just better.
And that's the shame.
And I would actually personally argue my favorite Persona as an experience is 3, because that ending fucked me up.
And that game's good, but unfortunately, neither of those is Persona 5. So bye 5.
Can we... I don't think we need to relitigate the game of our year argument.
Yeah, I think we can get rid of PlayerUnknown's and Pyre and Doki Doki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because those games, all of them are great.
Yeah.
They deserve to be.
But we've already
had
the discussion.
Yeah, Detention was the one that survived. So we've got Hyper Light Drifter, Life is Strange, Final Fantasy X, and Detention. So for me, the one that I would lose here is Hyper Light Drifter, but it's really good.
I would lose Final Fantasy X.
I could lose that too.
So, do we want to make it Life is
both?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is... So, I love Hyper Light Drifter. I don't want to say more things. I've already said a lot of things about Hyper Light Drifter. But I think only if one of them is going to stay, it's Hyper Light Drifter or Final Fantasy X has to duck out now.
So, ZP, you have strong opinions on this. What do you think?
I would vote Hyper Light Drifter stays over Final Fantasy X. I think
I'd vote the opposite.
I think Hyper Light Drifter never betrays.
Well.
Hyper Light Drifter never betrays you.
I know that the whole he's a dream and Dream Xanarkin is so bad, but
there is more game in Final Fantasy X? But is that a good thing?
I mean,
how
the highs of 10 are higher.
But there are characters I love in Final Fantasy X, and I don't think there was a single character I loved in Hyper Light Drifter. We've oscillated between assessing these games for their story value as well as their gameplay value, I feel like
Hyper Light Drifter tells a story with no words.
That's certainly
really cool.
Certainly an empowering and just deeply evocative accomplishment, but Titus dematerializing and Oron saying goodbye to everyone. We're gonna say that good. We're gonna say those two moments, or finding out what the final summoning all leads to. Watching the Albed's home get massacred and destroyed.
Yeah, there's Final Fantasy X has some freaking highs, man. Pete, do you have you're cool with losing both of them?
So yeah. Neither of those is going to win for me. So it's really up to you guys which one you want to keep. Obviously, I didn't play FFX.
So, could we cut to the chase here?
Does
anyone think that either of these games should win? Does anyone think that Hyper Light Drifter or Final Fantasy X should win?
This is hard for me because of these games, the only one that I didn't play is Detention, and it seems like it's getting... I mean, it won Game of 2017. I didn't play Detention, so...
I'm going to be perfectly honest. Personally, I actively dislike Life is Strange.
Ooh. That's a wrench I didn't see coming.
I
guess we haven't had too many.
I like Detention a lot more than Life is Strange.
I would echo that.
Ooh, I didn't see this coming. I thought so. Okay, so is anyone arguing for Hyper Light Drifter as Game of the Year? Would anyone make that argument?
I don't think that's possible.
Is anyone going to fight
Hold on.
for it?
Here's the real choice. If I make the argument, am I going to get 3 votes against it?
Yes.
Yes.
This is just you making dying gas.
Okay, I'd be willing to hear out Billy.
Well, hold on, ZP. Don't make me make an argument if you're ultimately not going to let Hyperlight Drifter win. I mean, like, and I'm not saying if I make a good argument, you just give it to me for free. But if I got to fight you that hard,
again,
I want it to.
I actively dislike Life is Strange, and I just do not want to live in a world where Life is Strange gets Game of our year.
I don't think you'll have to live in that world.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So does this
Drifter,
wait? Does this mean Life is Strange is like the first of these 4 to go?
No.
Well, I mean, I was going to argue for Life is Strange as my game of the year.
All right, God, this is really hard because like Life is Strange and Hyperlight Drifter are probably my top 2. So we're choosing between my top 2, which one doesn't even get to the final 3.
For me, it's Life is Strange and Detention. I can live with either of them. I mean, I like Final Fantasy X, so I can kind of live with that. I don't have a
Can we say
strong
Final
opinion
Fantasy
on
X goes and now we're down to 3?
Yeah, we can
Sure.
go ahead and eliminate Final Fantasy
Okay.
X. Personally, I would say no, but yeah. I can
So
see
we're
the
down-
writing on the wall.
We're down to Light Drifter, Life is Strange, and Detention. So Hyper Light Drifter, it's really tight, it's really cool, but man, Life is Strange deals with some heavy stuff, and it tells a really cool story. And there was no moment this year that moved me as much as when that Foles song kicks in at Chloe's funeral. If you go with that ending.
Yeah.
That scene is incredible. Like, some of the cinematography in Life is Strange is just something that you don't see in games very often. And it just moved me a lot. Like, I still listen to the Life is Strange soundtrack and just reminisce about moments from that game. It's one of the few games from this list that I'm going to replay. But, Detention I have replayed.
I feel the same thing
So-
you feel, Gino, about Hyperlight Drifter. And so I feel bad for not voting for a game just because I haven't played it. That's not what I'm doing. But I played both Life is Strange and Hyperlight Drifter, and they both did so much for me that they're probably going to be one of my... I mean, they're going to be one of my 2. I mean, I've heard what you guys had to say about Detention. I don't think it would have been the kind of game for me, honestly.
That's fair.
I mean, and you
So-
guys know me pretty well about what kind of games I like. I think that if I had played through all of Detention, I'd still be pulling for Hyperlight Drifter or Life is Strange.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. But I could live with Life is Strange or Detention, but Life is Strange is my preference. What do you think?
If Pete
ZP?
and
I
ZP...
would go with
Chris?
Detention.
Pete?
So this isn't like the Undertale year where I hated Undertale so much I picked a game that was basically an action game. I actively like Detention, so I can't pick Hyperlight Drifter this year as much as I like it. I didn't care for Life is Strange in the same way you did, Gino. I do agree it had some good cinematography, but ultimately I had some problems with the story and just the way things unfolded that I articulated in the podcast at the time. So I would pick Detention.
So if...
Okay. I mean, I can switch to Detention.
Well, if Hyperlight Drifter is going to lose, I'm going to vote Life is Strange.
Okay.
Could reach an impasse.
So, how much do I want to get into an impasse here is the real question. I really liked Life is Strange, but I also love Detention. These are both great games for me. And I think ultimately I'm cool with either of them winning. And Detention, as I've said earlier, this game is really elegant, and I love elegant design. It's one of the things that attracts me to games the most, is games that manage to do a lot with a little. And it manages to communicate so efficiently in like 3 hours what it takes most other games like 10 to 20 to communicate. So I can go with Detention. I can live with that.
Okay.
Though Life is Strange, personally, it would have been mine.
It feels so weird that the game that won Game of Our Year and Game of 2017, I didn't play it. I should go play it.
You should
Yeah,
play
you'll
it.
have to, man.
It's really good.
I just don't... based on what I've heard about it, it may just not be my style, but I can at least appreciate it being good at what
Yeah.
it does.
It's not that
That's
much
good.
of an investment, like Gino was
Yeah.
saying. Just check it
Yeah.
out.
So, the winner of Game of Our Year 2017 is Detention. Did not see that coming. Honestly, I thought it was going to be Life is Strange.
Me too.
This is cool. But both are great games.
This
Both
is what
deserving.
happens when you have to compromise. This is how centrism is going to kill us all. We're going to be sent into the death camps because of this kind of politicizing.
You're right. Magic Pendulum, The Quest for Colors, the true game.
You know
of
what?
the year.
I will change my vote to Magic Pendulum if it means.
That would mean
No,
Life
no,
is
no,
Strange wins.
No, it is Detention.
No. And the category winners, after all of this debate, are Best Comedy, Hatoful Boyfriend, Best Drama, Life is Strange, Best Horror, Doki Doki Literature Club, Best Action, Hyper Light Drifter, Best Adventure, Final Fantasy X, Best Character, Chloe, Life is Strange, Best Soundtrack, Final Fantasy X, Prettiest Game, Hyper Light Drifter, Best Performance/Voice Acting, Senua from Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, Best Mechanic, PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds 4, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Gino's Platypus Award for Game That Should Not Be, Magic Pendulum, The Quest for Color. Billy's Grindfather Award, Persona 5. Worst Story, Jade Empire. Best Twist, Monica Loves You, and I Really Mean You, I'm Talking to You, Peter. Doki Doki Literature Club. Game of the Year 2017, Detention. John Paul Sartre Memorial Award.
Yeah, I know.
That best expresses the ultimate futility of the human condition. Life is Strange. Bonus subcategory, Anthropocene Award for a game that most horrifyingly portrays a problem with modernity. The World Ends With You, Rampant and Shallow Consumerism. And ZP's Help, I'm Trapped in Sysiphean Torment Award, Mobius Final Fantasy. And Game of Our Year, the final winner, Detention. There you have it, folks. So, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this journey. Thank you for Game of the Year. Thank you, Billy.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with us for 3 whole hours of podcast. I mean...
Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, and you're the one to always complain about how long the Final Fantasy podcasts are.
Yeah, because then we have to talk about Final Fantasy during those podcasts.
Thank you, Pete.
Always a pleasure, guys. This is usually our marathon, but we got through it. Tune in again next year, and like Gino said at the beginning of the podcast, make sure you send in those emails. The better ones we get, the better the episode will be.
Yeah, so that is at deeplistenspod or deeplistens.libsyn.com. Hit up our comment sections or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And thank you, Chris ZombiePie Redacted.
I'm stuck.
Till next time.
Torment.
Thank you. Till next time. Peace!